I was about to go live earlier. I don't have music going on in the background. This time if I have background noise, it's supposed to be there. Because it's, well, it'd be the emulator. And yeah, it looks like everything is working. And I believe the save actually works perfectly fine, loading, putting us back to where we were at the end. Last time we were working on this puzzle. Though I've already messed up from what I was going to do, which is, actually read these lines out loud. Let's load that save state. Hey Junpei, that tile you've got, you think maybe you're supposed to put it in one of those empty spaces? I mean, the pattern does look kind of the same, doesn't it? He's right. I think so too. But if that is the case, you're going to need to collect all 3 tiles, right? Don't you think we should collect all of them before you start putting them in? Okay, so we have... Oh, we only have 2 of the 3. Oh. Damn it. Yeah, I'm trying to get into the room. So I can hang up the curtain. Open the curtain, because you can see something is there. Wow, that's a pretty obvious peepfold. Someone is really dedicated. Well, with a hole this big, you gotta wonder if maybe they wanted to be caught. So you're saying maybe the one getting spied on was into that shit? Maybe they were into, like, those home invasion fantasies. Home invasion? Interesting, I see. You two are real idiots, you know that? Thank you, Lotus. Let's try spreading the curtains. There's a hole in the curtain. If I look at it from a ways back, I can see a single tile. Alright, from here I can see what tile it is. Looks like it's 5th from the top and 3rd from the right. Might as well put it back. Alright, looking through this hole, I can see a white tile, 5th from the top and 3rd from the right. Let's have a closer look, shall we? Nothing strange here. Nope, this thing's not budging. Well, then that means... Well, we could try it on the other spot, but... I mean, there's nothing that actually lights up. So, the issue... Oh. I'm being a moron. The way to do this would thus be to go to the other room. What, you think you're her knight or her protector or something? You're creeping me out. Whatever, man. I'm going. Since I already, fucked up in saying some of the lines. What we need to do is go in here. In the bathroom in Lotus's room, I saw a particular tile when I looked through the hole in the shower curtain. Maybe if I look in the same place over here... Alright, now where was it? 5th from the top, 3rd from the right. So. What are you mumbling about, Jumpy? Oh, sorry. Could you be quiet for a minute? I don't want to forget this. So, that tile. This one, yes, this one's loose. I think I can get under this with my finger, with my nails, and it's a plate, surprising no one. Though, of course, now there is going to be mold growing there if anybody ever uses that shower. The exit. Lotus and Santa are in the room on the other side. I'm gonna go check up on them. We popped in there to do one thing and one thing only. There's a tile in the frame. But I guess I'm supposed to put tiles in the empty spaces. Yeah, and you can see that it's the dog. The same dog as in the other one. Alright, I'm gonna give it a shot. I can never actually visually tell when that is going to be right. Yes. Yes, I did it. There. Picture complete. And there goes the frame. What's this? What do you mean, what's this? Pretty obvious, isn't it? It's a hole in the wall. Like a hidden safe or something, you know? Anyway, let's take a look. I think there's something inside. Yeah, it's a key. Oh, I suppose that might not be super obvious on the stream. Actually looking over at it. It is the Mars key, the man symbol key. Junpei messed around a bit with the key he had and looked blankly at the picture that slid down. What's the deal with this picture anyway? Santa had only been mumbling to himself, but it drew Lotus's attention. She looked at the picture and paused. I think I've seen this picture before. Where? In a book. There's a British biochemist named Sheldrake. He has a rather interesting theory. I saw this picture in his book. What's this interesting theory? And I would like to note, this is one of the more odd bits of character development that kind of suggests maybe the outfit that Lotus is wearing is not entirely of her own choice. What's this interesting theory? Morphogenetic field, which relies on the theory of morphic resonance. Man, I can't deal with this. Just listening to you talk about it is giving me a headache. Yeah, it's pretty boring shit. Santa put his hands on his head as though he were in great pain. Also, Santa's a dick. Lotus merely arched an eyebrow in his direction and continued. Not a difficult concept to grasp. In essence, he states that the shapes of living organisms and their behavioral patterns are transmitted through a field not visible to the eye. What part of that isn't difficult exactly? Lotus did not look pleased. Alright, how about this? Theory of the telepathic mechanism. Telepathy? Yes, telepathy. Well, perhaps not exactly telepathy, but it's close enough for a simple approximation. Santa suddenly burst into laughter. Are you serious? Telepathy? Who do you think we are, kids from the 70s? I can't believe someone would actually do serious research on something like that. Yes, I agree. Lotus's response was surprisingly curt. Junpei had expected at least some conflict. I read the book, but I can hardly say I understood it. I'm in no position to defend or condemn anything it said. It was probably just someone latching onto a statistical outlier from some study and turning it into a ridiculous theory. There's no scientific merit to any of it, I'm sure. I would like to note, that's like half the goddamn theories I've read for computer science. The difference is you then have to, well, not in all programs, but in a lot of programs, you then have to make a goddamn program that helps you to realize, oh, hey, no, this statistical outlier, it is an outlier, but it is still the thing that's making this paper fucking valid. But even so, Anyway, I saw a picture like that in one in his book. Lotus indicated the picture they'd all been looking at. After a moment, she walked up to the strange picture, examined it, and then spoke. Hey, what do you think this picture looks like? It's a fucking boxer. Santa answered first. What do you mean? Isn't it just like abstract or something like that? It's just black and white scribbles. There's no meaning there. That's it. What about you, Junpei? Does it look like anything to you? I guess it looks like it's a goddamn dog. I don't see any of the other ones. But there is one answer that is orders of magnitude better. Funyarimpa. I don't know what that means. I looked it up when I was originally playing this because I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But it's the best answer. Also, for some reason, I keep hitting B because that's A for 360 controllers. A Funyarimpa See, I mean, this totally looks like one here and here. Junpei indicated parts of the picture that looked exactly like the other parts. After 3 seconds of silence, Lotus looked at Junpei. What the hell is a Funya-rimpa? What do you mean, what the hell is a Funya-rimpa? You mean you don't know? How the hell would I know? How could you not know? That's practically blasphemous. Say you're sorry. Apologize to the Funya-rimpa. Goodness, you are such a rude woman. Another 3 seconds of awkward silence went by. Lotus opened her mouth as she shook. Junpei, are you just screwing around? Forget it. I'm just gonna tell you. This is a dog. See, like this. Lotus pointed at parts of the picture and eventually a dog took shape in them. It looked as though she had a point. It was a dog. Santa also nodded in agreement. Oh, now we know what it's a picture of, but I don't see how that helps us. Lotus nodded and began to speak. A TV show from Great Britain did an experiment once. They took 2 similar pictures. Both of them were difficult to identify initially. But once you figured out the answer, you couldn't see it as anything else. The first picture was a woman wearing a hat. The other one, well, to make it easier, let's just say it was this picture of a dog. So, their experiment... First, they sent the pictures to other parts of the world where British radio and television didn't reach, to Ireland, the US, Africa, Europe, etc. Then in each country, they gathered a number of test subjects. All in all, there were roughly 1,000 people. Those 1,000 people were shown the 2 pictures and asked, what does this picture look like to you? The results in and of themselves were not terribly interesting. 9.2% of people saw the lady in the lady picture. 3.9% of people saw the dog in the dog picture. Then 2 days later, they broadcast a new show. During the 30-minute show, they broadcast the dog picture and its solution. The audience was estimated to be 200,000 people. After the audience, it could be assumed that the number of people who knew the solution to the dog picture now totaled over 200,000 people. After another 2 days had passed, they gathered a number of research subjects from areas where British TV and radio did not exist. This time, they were only able to find a sample of roughly 850 people. Naturally, none of them were people who had participated in the first test. They were, however, given the same test and the same 2 pictures. The results were shocking. 10% of the people saw the lady in the lady picture. The previous test had yielded a 9.2 success rate. The change was not statistically significant. The dog picture, however, produced a very different result. The percentage of people able to successfully find the dog grew from 3.9 to 6.8, a very significant increase. So do you understand? Do you realize the significance of this experiment? Yeah, it's a statistical outlier and could have been, modified by the people unwittingly while they were doing the experiment. If they had pointed out the features of the dog unintentionally. There was no way the second group could have seen the picture. They lived far away from Britain and couldn't have seen the picture. Redundancy. But even so, it was only the success rate for the dog picture that went up. Why? How did that happen? What does it mean? Lotus looked back and forth, from Junpei to Santa and back again. Normally calm and collected, she looked now as though she were very nearly possessed, and there was something manic about her manner. Santa took an involuntary step backward. Junpei didn't budge and stared straight back into Lotus's eyes. Sure, eyes. Does this have something to do with that field or whatever it was that you were talking about earlier? A field not visible to the eye. So if more people know the answer, then that information will pass through the field. Also, yeah, this pseudoscience is one of the kind of backing things of the entire goddamn game. So, if you don't like easily disproven pseudoscience, well, actually, you might still like the game. Chunsoft is pretty good at making visual novels, and, well, they had a lot of practice with sound novels, essentially visual novels that didn't have these pictures. Psych. Her manner suddenly shifted, and Lotus smiled broadly at Junpei and Santa. She waved her hand dismissively, doing her best to laugh the whole confrontation off. Oh, I was just kidding. You really shouldn't take me seriously. Well, I mean, the things I just told you about are true. They really did happen, but the results of that experiment really aren't anything to go by. They could have easily falsified them. In the end, I'm sure they were just in it for the ratings. They are a TV station after all. At last, it seemed Santa had gained control of his composure. Right. Man, I gotta admit, you had me going there for a minute. I really thought you were serious. Of course not. Like I told you before, I'm sure it's all just pseudoscience. Okay. Right. Santa and Lotus laughed and gave one another jovial claps on the shoulder. Junpei, however, didn't feel so much like laughing. Something felt wrong, unclear. Well, yeah, he thought it was a Funya Rimpa, whatever the fuck that is. Alright, enough nonsense. We've got the key, let's get out of here. Word. Lotus and Santa walked away from the picture. But Junpei stayed, staring at the picture of the dog. Wondering, how is this a dog? A field not visible to the naked eye? Morphogenetic field. The more he thought about it, the more his head hurt. I mean, we have pretty well established Junpei as being dumb. Alright, let's go to the hallway. I'll go get June. You guys head to the door. Okay. Roger that. It's this door, right? I don't actually remember. Yes, it unlocked. Good job, Junpei. Good, now we can get going. Come on, what are you guys standing around for? Let's get out of here. We did actually... Okay, yeah. Come on, Jumpy. Let's go. Alright, let's go. I will say, one thing I actually do really like, and something that not all of Chunsoft's properties have had happen to them. I like that the names that... I'm assuming the names that were Japanese stayed Japanese and it wasn't arbitrarily changed in translation. Because, like, what the hell is it? Banshee's Last Cry. The translation made everybody... gave everybody American names. And while it's a sound novel, not a visual novel, so it doesn't really matter. I kind of prefer having the original names. It makes it so that if you're talking about it with somebody online, you don't have to figure out if you're talking to somebody who was playing the original and you were not. They stepped through the door to find themselves in a wide hallway. Junpei, June, Lotus, and Santa stopped for a moment and looked at their surroundings. A short distance away, a metal grate extended across the width of the hallway. It took hold and shook, but it refused to move. Nearby was a pair of elevators. It took only a few button presses to determine that the elevators would not respond to their efforts. Should have only taken one. They could only assume that the elevators were not powered. There was only one door left. Looks like a staff door. Looks like we only have one choice left? Yeah, sure does. Well then, let's open it. Junpei grabbed hold of the knob and quietly pushed the door open. He entered, slowly, trying to take in as much of his surroundings as he could. The others followed shortly. Oh, so it's a kitchen. Santa did not look pleased. What were you expecting? Isn't it obvious? The exit. I was hoping this would be the way out of here. You really think it'd be that easy? Yeah, I know, still. As they talked, Lotus headed deeper into the room. Until at last she stood in front of a door. If we can just get through this door, we should come out on the other side of that grate we saw earlier. But don't we need a key for that? Sorry, I guess that wasn't very constructive. Neither Junpei nor Lotus looked terribly happy. Junpei dug the ship map from his pocket and spread it out in front of him. As he did, whoa. I knocked that over. I will be right back. the thing I knocked over spilled a tiny amount. Fortunately, it was not super filled, and it did not spill much. But it does have sugar in it, so I do want to get it cleaned up real quick. As he did. Hey, what's that? Huh? Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to tell you. I found this a little while ago. It's a map of the B-deck. Before Junpei could finish, Lotus snatched the map away from him. She ran her finger across it, muttering to herself. I knew it. See? Look. Junpei did as he was told. Santa and Jin moved over to look at the map as well. See? We came in here. If we go out there, then we'll be on the other side of the grate. With her finger, Lotus traced a path on the map. She was right. Satisfied that she had been correct, Lotus folded the map and handed it back to Junpei. He took it and slid the valuable piece of paper back into his pocket. There's a card reader on the right side of the door, and that means the key card is somewhere in here, right? Either that or we're all going to die. That seems the most likely. Alright, we know what we need to do then. Let's get moving. First off, I say we split up and look for clues. No, let's stay together and search only one area at a time, like good adventure game protagonists. Okay. Not that it really matters, nobody but Junpei is going to find anything anyway. Again, just because it's a visual novel doesn't mean that it also doesn't follow adventure game logic. So, there is an important item in here somewhere. I just don't remember where. Partition, there's nothing special about it. I was actually trying to, check out the plates. These 9 plates look pretty expensive. They're plates for appetizers. Remember, appetizers usually come on square plates. Why the I don't fucking know any of this bullshit. Okay, well, excuse me, princess. A voucher. It says, appetizer 9, meat dish 10, soup A, seafood dish F. Damn it. 1, 2, 3, there's 10 of them. If you flip these over, they look like hats. The middle is super deep for a plate. They're soup plates. They're made that way so that the soup doesn't spill. If we ever get out of here, you should treat yourself to a nice dinner out. What makes you think a poor college student has the money to do something like that? I think there are 15 of these plates. I'm assuming they're for seafood. How the hell can you tell that? They look just like any other plate from the 99-cent store. If you ever take a lady out to dinner, you're going to embarrass yourself. I feel sorry for June. Why the hell are you bringing up June? The lady doth protest too much, methinks. You're not terribly subtle. There's a bunch of little wavy ridges on this plate. Those plates are for serving meat. You really are ignorant, aren't you? Come on, it's not like I need to know this crap. Jeez. And it didn't tell us, but... Oh, hey, this actually changes the picture. This voucher doesn't match the number of the plates on the table. It says appetizer 9, meat dish 10, soup A, and seafood dish F on the voucher. So there are 9 of the square plates, 11 of the bowls, but there was 10 of them, I think. 15 of the seafood. I don't know why I'm moving my mouse around. I deliberately disabled the mouse because it wasn't showing in the right spot. And it should be, 16 of the meat bowl, plate. And the plates on the table are 9 appetizer, 16 meat, 10 soup, 15 seafood. Maybe they're using hexadecimal here. And hexadecimal it's a number system that goes 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F, 10, 11. I got confused by that for a second because I'm a gigantic moron. I also hate using hex for anything. You're familiar with base 10, right? That's the normal system of numbers. Base 10 equivalents for hexadecimal numbers would go like this. A equals 10, B equals 11, so on and so forth. And 10 equals 16. The 10 becomes 16 in base 10. I know it sounds strange, but you can think of it as just 6 letters added on to the normal number system after 9. I think I get it. Nope, that will come into play once we've actually done some more stuff. All we've got here is a pot and frying pan. Oh, and a pressure cooker. Well, I guess we could use some of those as weapons. I mean, a pressure cooker is always effective as a bomb. What kind of an idiot are you? You're gonna run around holding that thing while you're looking for the dead? Hey man, it was just a joke. Why so serious? This is the door we came in through. It's not locked, so we can go back out, but what's the point, right? All that's out there is an iron gate and a dead-end hallway. Yep. Might as well be locked for all the good going back out there to do. And we got a sink here. A sink. It's still got water in it. There's a couple plates in there, but I don't think they're going to help us much. Whetstone. Maybe this table is for preparing food. There are plates everywhere. Note, you can tell that one of the reasons why this isn't completely and totally moronic. Look at who's saying this. No one is saying this. This is the narrator. Or maybe it's Junpei's thoughts, but Junpei's a moron, so it's the narrator. Oh, a countertop. There's a rolling pin and colander here. Nothing useful. A trash can. There's nothing inside of it. Well, better than being full of rotten food, I suppose. Damn it, there's nothing in here. Hey Santa, digging through the trash really suits you. What the hell did you say? Listen, lady, I did you a favor. I knew you'd just piss and moan, so I did it for you. Oh my, I don't recall asking you to do anything. I ought to throttle you. Excuse me. Does it feel colder in here? Kind of far away. I can't really tell, but is that a ladle? I don't really think a ladle is going to be very useful. Hey Santa, could you open that door please? What the hell? There's no way I could open that thing. Guess you're getting to that age where your eyes start to go, huh? You better watch your mouth, boy, or someone won't live long enough to see that door opened. This has got the two of them on edge. We gotta get out of here, and fast. That's the exit. There's a big ol' iron plate over the door. I don't think we can open it. And these are 2 additional doors that I don't think we've seen yet. Wow, this pot looks like it's made out of silver. I bet drinking tea from this pot would be really yummy. Spending a day off with June, drinking tea. Could such a day ever happen for me? Jumpy? Oh, nothing. We don't really need hot water, so we should be moving on. It's a note. It's got a bunch of stuff written on it, but it doesn't look like a code or anything like that. Well, yeah, most likely it would... Well, actually... Now thinking back to when I worked in a restaurant, that was always just used for notes bitching about either the cooks or the waiters. Or rarely the sommeliers. But nobody really gave a shit about the sommeliers. Oh, there's so much stuff in here. A whole lot of cans. This is probably a pantry. There are cans lining every shelf in here. Wooden box on the second row, though. Well, let's see if we can check out that wooden box. Inside is a knife we're going to use to murder the rest of the party. A rusty knife. I don't think we'll be able to use it while it's like this. The knife seemed important, Junpei thought, but it wasn't going to be much use the way it was. It's futile. Futile? You know, a waste, useless, pointless. Oh, any particular reason you wanted to bring that up? Oh, no reason really. I was just thinking about futility. She wasn't making much sense. Junpei tried rephrasing his question. Why were you thinking about futility? At last, she answered, well, it has something to do with the Titanic. The Titanic? Yep. Have you ever heard the story that the sinking of the Titanic was predicted? I mean, I don't think she's going to actually explain it if we say yes, but... No, I haven't. What is it? In 1892, 14 years before the Titanic sank, a novel was published. It was called Futility. It was written by an American novelist named Morgan Robertson. The story was about a big cruise ship colliding with an iceberg and sinking. Of course, if that was the only similarity, there wouldn't be any reason to mention it. It wasn't, though. The name of the ship, its nationality, course, departure time, size, displacement, maximum speed, number of passengers and crew, number of lifeboats, even the location of the accident itself and the cause, and the location of the damage. Everything that matches the Titanic almost exactly. It was almost as if he'd seen the whole thing happen, but this book was written 14 years before the Titanic sank. That's not all. It wasn't just futility that predicted the sinking of the Titanic. There were two other similar stories written by a man named William Thomas Stead, both of them before the accident, one in 1886 and one in 1892. Stead wrote two stories that had striking similarities to the Titanic disaster. I believe there was also... It's not super well documented, but I believe there was... I can't even fucking remember what I was trying to say. Essentially newspaper, sci-fi type things that had similar things at the time. They didn't have huge similarities, but disaster type novels, storytelling of the thing, were, as I understand it, somewhat popular at the time. In one, two ships collided, and many of the passengers died because there weren't enough lifeboats. In the other, a ship collided with an iceberg and sank. I don't know. I mean, I'll give you that it seems a little weird, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't too uncommon for ships to hit icebergs back in the day, or even other ships. Right. I knew you'd say that. But what if Stead had some sort of special powers? To be more specific, what if he had the ability to do automatic writing? This is one of the points where I'm sitting here going, yeah, the writing in here is not the best. What? Automatic writing? Wait, are you talking about that thing where someone says they're possessed by a spirit? And they write a bunch of stuff without knowing what they're writing? Yes. What do you mean, yes? That stuff's a load of bull. Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, that automatic writing isn't a total load. These guys still couldn't have predicted the sinking of the Titanic. When the Stead dude wrote this thing, nobody had died on the Titanic yet. So if automatic writing is about being possessed by spirits of dead people, who the hell possessed him so he could write that stuff? That's not it. What's not it? Stead wasn't possessed by a spirit. He was doing the possessing. What are you smoking? William Thomas Stead was a passenger on the Titanic. He just wrote down what he saw with his own eyes, 20 years before it happened. He decided it was probably best to say nothing. What June was saying was insane and utterly absurd. If he tried to take what she was saying seriously, he'd go mad. Junpei smiled uncomfortably. Well, why don't we talk about this some other time, okay? Huh? But... Her voice trailed off and she glanced at the floor, troubled. Tap, tap. Junpei tapped June gently on the shoulder and awkwardly reached around her to pick up the knife from the box. Shinking time. Time to combine this with the knife. Maybe I'll use the whetstone to sharpen the knife. To get a sharp murder knife. The blade of the knife is getting sharper by the second. I should be able to cut something pretty good with this. We somehow removed all of the rust from the blade, despite not normally being a good idea to go that far up the blade. So, let's check out some of this cheese. Who the fuck stamped cheese with cheese? With just the word cheese? Hey, there's something behind the cheese. You're right. Why don't we move some of the cheese? Alright guys, time to move it. June and I need to look behind you. I couldn't actually see that. There's a little green bottle back there. Bottle of oil. Oh. This actually is a good reminder of something. First time through here, I had a big old issue because I figured, oh, okay, we need to use either the water or the oil with the whetstone before we can use it with the knife. I was dumb as hell. There are a number of cheeses lined up on the shelf. This is Gouda cheese, the most famous Dutch cheese. If you don't cut open the casing, it usually won't go bad, so you can store it at room temperature for quite a while. So we can eat this. Most likely. I'm not hungry at all. Guess it's hard to get hungry in a situation like this. It depends. There's milk in here. Milk in an iron barrel. Judging by the rust, it's probably really old. Maybe we shouldn't open it up. I don't think it'd be a pretty sight. I don't know, have you ever seen milk that color? Note the color would be like brown. Or reddish brown. I'm nauseating myself thinking about this. Mainly because I'm also drinking coffee at this point in time. There are cans lining every shelf in here, wooden box in the second row though. Okay, so that's that. The bolt is rusted in place, it won't budge. Of course. Maybe if I put some oil on it. Hey, just a little bit of oil and come on. Come on, you little son of a bitch. Whoa. Ah, yes, gotcha, you little bastard. You did it, Jumpy. You're so smart. Well, you know, one of the really nice things about having an adventure game protagonist here, and I realize, again, it's a VN, but having an adventure game protagonist, is that the collective IQ of everybody in this room is lower than anybody that's going to be playing this. And note, you don't need to be smart to play this. Case in point, being the person that's playing it right now. As Junpei walked into the room, a blast of cold air washed over him. Almost instinctively, he folded his arms tight across his chest, doing what he could to conserve body heat. Brr, it's cold in here. What is this place? A freezer? Are you blind? It's a freezer. Santa's teeth had already begun to chatter. Hardly surprising, the freezer was far too cold for someone dressed as he was. Yeah. Maybe if he had a real shirt. Lotus, however, was in an even worse situation. Oh, no way. That's way too cold for me. I'll freeze solid in seconds. Sorry, but I'm afraid I'll have to pass on this one. I'm going to leave the rest to you. And with that, she ran out of the room. As Lotus left, June came in. Whoa, it's really cold in here. White puffs of steam hovered in front of their faces as they talked. June had already started to shiver. Hey, you don't need to be in here. You had a fever just a little bit ago. You should stay outside. We got this. No, I'm fine. My fever's gone now, but Junpei had scarcely opened his mouth when the thunderous sound of metal on metal rang out from behind them. In unison, they spun around to find that the door they had only recently come through was closed. Junpei rushed to the door. Desperately, he grabbed hold of the doorknob, which we can see is frozen in place. Ow! It was cold, beyond cold. Merely touching it was painful. The doorknob had been frozen solid. They quickly deduced that the pipe next to the door had ruptured. Water released by the rupture had hit the door and frozen instantly. Santa shoved Junpei aside and pounded against the door. Hey, Lotus, you're out there, right? Open the door. She wasted no time in responding. What do you want? What's going on? The door won't open. Try opening it from that side, please. Fine, if you say so. Hold on. Soon they could hear Lotus on the other side of the door. Arg. And the grunting ceased and they could hear light panting as from exertion. It's no use. It won't budge. You've got more people in there. You figure it out. God damn it. Santa was shaking like a newborn deer. Junpei was hugging herself and was shivering violently. Even Junpei, with the heaviest clothes of any of them, was clearly feeling the cold. With every breath they took, they could feel the cold working its way deeper and deeper into their bodies. Anyway, let's find a way out. If we don't get moving, we're going to be permanent residents. 2 heads are better than none. I'm sure we'll figure something out. Yeah, you're right. Let's just take a good look around this room, okay? Right. They pushed in close to one another and began to search. This thing's frozen solid. This pork? Yeah, seems like it. What's this thing? Looked like a tag or something. So, we will need that tag, so it's a good thing I grabbed that. Everything's frozen in here. Doesn't look like there's anything else interesting. The shelves are covered with frozen food, nothing special about that. I was trying to get that little pan on top. Let's open the sub-freezer. Dry ice. And this has another important note. Junpei picked up the dry ice with his sleeves so as to avoid burning himself. Dry ice is just frozen carbon dioxide, right? Yeah, it is. I wonder how warm it has to get for it to turn back into gas again. Hell if I know. How's it going to help us anyway? Oh, well, I figured we might be able to use it to get out of here. They were about to move on when June spoke. Carbon dioxide sublimation point is minus 109 degrees. Any warmer than that, and it'll turn into gas. Any lower, and it becomes a solid. Junpei looked at her, dumbfounded. How do you know that? Despite my looks, I'm the queen of random knowledge. Looks bad to mess up when you're showing off. Arglemoth. Oh, you're so cold your mouth's going numb. Yeah. That's right. You're just doing that on purpose, aren't you? June giggled and did her best to hide her guilt. At least she was still feeling good enough to joke around, Junpei told himself. Come on, guys, don't you think that's kind of weird? I wonder why it doesn't turn into a liquid first. Santa was now shivering at an astonishing rate, but his curiosity seemed unaffected. Junpei, however, was not in the mood to discuss science. Now, this skips the little bit of storytelling. This gets us into dumb Kurt Vonnegut bullshit. It did seem rather odd to Junpei, and he couldn't help but think about it. June answered. But it can turn into a liquid. Carbon dioxide turns to liquid if you put it under high enough pressure. But at 1 atmosphere, normal air pressure, it won't turn into a liquid, right? That's right. Instead of melting, it'll do what's called sublimating, and change immediately from a solid state to a gaseous one. See, that is weird. Water's liquid between 32 degrees and 212 degrees. Of course, that's Fahrenheit. So why isn't that the case for carbon dioxide? Well, because those are just the temperatures for water. June replied with an answer that stunned both of them. There's a kind of ice that doesn't turn into liquid when it goes above 32 degrees. I heard about it. Its melting point is 96 degrees. Ice with a melting point of 96 degrees. You mean there's water that freezes at 96 degrees? Yeah. Well, you could also look at an ice that won't melt until it's 96 degrees. And no, that doesn't just look like a really bad N to you. That's just a really bad font choice. Especially since we can see a capital non-bold W that looks fine right above. Nader that freezes at 96 degrees? Ice that won't melt until it's 96 degrees? Junpei was cold as hell, but this was too interesting to ignore. He did his best to warm up by rubbing his arms and stamping his feet, then put the question to June. So what's this ice with a melting point of 96 degrees called? I heard it's called Ice 9. So it's going to destroy the world? Ice 9? Originally, Ice 9 was a made-up substance invented by a science fiction author. But recently, scientists have discovered that such a substance actually exists. Wait, hold up. So is this thing called Ice 9, or is it water? Like I said, if the ice is over 96 degrees, it'll be liquid. If it's under that, it'll solidify. So you could think of it as a polymorph of H2O. Here, think of it like diamonds and graphite. They're both made of carbon, right? Depending upon the structure of the crystallization, the hardness and structure are completely different. So you're saying normal water and this Ice 9 are like that? Yep. She wasn't finished. Have you heard the story about the crystallization of glycerin? For 150 years after the discovery of glycerin, people cooled it, warmed it, and did all sorts of things to it. But whatever they did, it never crystallized. However, one day in 1920, some glycerin that was en route to England by ship was discovered to have crystallized during the trip. Naturally, scientists worldwide wanted to research this new crystallized form of glycerin and began asking for samples of the seed. A seed is, of course, a sample of the original crystallized substance. With a seed crystal, further crystallization of glycerin would be a simple matter. However, something very strange happened. Not only did the glycerin encouraged by the seed crystals being crystallized, nearby samples did as well. It didn't end there. After that day, all glycerin in the world began to crystallize naturally when cooled to less than 64 degrees. Before that day, no matter how glycerin was cooled, it refused to crystallize. But once the crystallization had begun, it was almost like, how do I put it? It was almost like all the glycerin in the world was communicating. Yes. This game is filled with dumb bullshit. Communicating in some way that we can't sense. Morphogenetic fields. Junpei. I mean, if I'm going for asshole Junpei 100% of the time, this is totally on character. I was kind of annoyed. Jun was nice, but he'd had enough of her ridiculous stories. So all of a sudden a substance began to crystallize without a seed crystal? That seemed unlikely, impossible. In fact, it was utterly ridiculous. Even so, Junpei couldn't help but ask, what does that have to do with Ice 9? To his surprise, it was Santa and not June who answered. What she's saying is that it's a lot like Ice 9. What happened, I mean. A lot like, that would be bad. If water everywhere started freezing at 96 degrees. Man. It'd be the end of the world. Junpei felt that Santa might not be treating the idea of the end of the world with the proper concern. At any rate, we're not going to have to worry about the end of the world unless we can get out of here. Pretty damn quick. He was right. Junpei shivered. Alright guys, I think that's enough of that. I didn't think we'd get quite this far off topic. I mean, I know I'm kinda at fault here, but we can't be screwing around anymore. Seriously. I might go by the name Santa right now, but I didn't grow up in Iceland. I freaking hate the cold. So let's get cracking, alright? We gotta find a way out of here. Santa stomped off, clearly doing his best to pretend the cold wasn't affecting him. Selfish, isn't he? Thought Junpei to himself. Still, Santa was right. It was high time they got back to their search. Story of Ice 9 had him interested, but there'd be time to think about that once they had gotten out of the freezer and weren't in danger of losing their fucking fingers. You goddamn moron, Junpei. Junpei looked at June, nodded, and resumed his search of the room. Maybe it just needs more of a shock, you know? More of a shock? So I think the answer we're looking for is eventually we need to find like a fire extinguisher. This thing is covering something. It's frozen solid. I can't flip it over. Also, I wish I knew what that little red thing behind the packages of frozen food were. I'm just clicking on all the various items in here. Oh, frozen chicken. Oh, actually, I think I know. This needs to be combined with... This needs to be combined with this. Okay, I was wrong. Can the pork be combined? Oh. Alright, the dry ice is all in pieces now. Okay, so let's get this open. There is a water bottle and some sturdy rope. There isn't anything else here that looks useful. Hey Junpei, didn't you find some dry ice earlier? Yeah? There's warm water coming out of that pipe. Warm water and dry ice. What do you think would happen if we put that stuff in a sealed container together? Okay, so. I'm going to put these pieces of dry ice into the water bottle. Water bottle with dry ice in it. There's water dripping from this pipe. Looks like when the pipe burst, the water hit the doorknob and it froze it in place. This water out actually seems almost warm. There's ice surrounding the doorknob. There's warm water flowing from the pipe. Yet where the hell do I actually click to get the water? And let's just tie a rope on here. Water bottle bomb. So that's what we needed to do. There's warm water flowing from the pipe. Okay. Warm water dripped from the ruptured pipe near the door. Junpei pulled out the water bottle filled with dry ice, let a good amount of water fill in, and quickly sealed it up tight. The makeshift bomb complete, he tied it to the doorknob as quickly as he could, managing the cold. Alright, that's set. So, what do we do now? We just need to give it a little, tap. The bottle's already about to pop. If we just throw a rock or something at it, it'll go off all on its own. A small rock? Junpei looked at the floor. Scattered across it were pieces of dry ice left over from the large chunk he'd crushed earlier. Alright, this ought to do the trick. He pulled his sleeve down over his hand to keep from getting burned and grabbed the chunk of dry ice. It was a pretty good size, about as big as a pool ball. Figured it would be just about the right size. Alright guys, stand back. Actually, we should probably hide somewhere. Both Santa and June looked at him with new concern. Where exactly do you expect us to hide, genius? There isn't really anywhere big enough. That big old thing in the floor? Look, right here. We can hide in there. Junpei pulled open the door to the small cellar. Come on, get inside, quick. Santa and June nodded and jumped down into the hole. Junpei quickly followed. In his hand, he could feel the chill of the frozen carbon dioxide, even through his sleeve. He tightened his grip, took aim, and prepared to throw. And missed by a country mile. Alright, here it goes. 3, 4, 5, what? You're counting the wrong way. Oops. That is a really sad excuse for a joke, man. Sorry, dude. Alright, for real this time. You guys ready? Yes, whenever you're ready. Just throw the damn thing. Alright, here I go. 3, 2, 1. Junpei threw the chunk of dry ice as hard as he could. With the same motion, he ducked down into the cellar with Santa and June. Just as... ah, boom. Junpei leapt up out of the cellar and ran to the door. It was still locked. Jumpy, the ice on the door, is it gone? Yeah, it's gone. Blast must have shattered it. Alright, let's see if it opens. Junpei grabbed the knob and pushed with all his might, and then fell on the fucking floor. The door gave way easily, and all three of them tumbled out of the freezer at once. Hooray, we're out. June, relieved, collapsed onto the floor. Move. Santa shoved past Junpei and ran straight to the grill, which he immediately grabbed. Ow, god damn it, hot, fuck. He proceeded to kick the grill in a futile but amusing fit of rage. But where was Lotus? It took Junpei only a moment to find her. She was sitting on the counter, idly scratching her chest. Welcome back. I was starting to get tired of waiting for you guys. With a great yawn, Lotus lowered herself off of the counter. Junpei clenched his teeth and walked toward her. What were you doing? What do you mean, what was I doing? I was waiting. We were gonna die. Oh yeah? But you didn't, so everything worked out alright, didn't it? What the hell? Just kidding. Might not look like it, but I was really worried. Don't give me that crap. I'm telling the truth. I mean, if you died, then I'd be in trouble too. If you died, then I'd be stuck here and I'd die too. See? I did all I could. I even looked around to see if there was anything I could use to pry open the door. What about heating up the door, or heating up a metal utensil to heat up the door? But I couldn't find anything, so all I could do was wait. I mean, what else did you want me to do? Call the cops? It was true that there wasn't much she could have done, but something about her tone. Junpei gritted his teeth. Fine. But there's one thing I have to ask you. What's that? You didn't close the door, did you? What? You think I closed the door on you? Why would I do something like that? It closed on its own. I told you before, if you die, then I die too. She was right, and Junpei knew it. Without them, she'd be in very serious trouble. It seemed that an accident was the only explanation for the door's closure. If Lotus had really wanted to kill them, all she would have had to do was bar the door from the outside. I mean, after all, we'd had to open that fucking bar to get in. And she hadn't. Well, she hadn't done anything. The most she was guilty of laziness or negligence, not attempted murder. Junpei swallowed his anger and did his best to apologize. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I doubted you. Oh, yes, well that's alright, as long as you understand. Lotus looked away and twirled her hair between her fingertips. His vengeance against the grill complete, Santa swaggered back toward Junpei and Lotus. Hey, no more screwing around, you two. Break time's over. Especially for you, lady. You've just been sitting on that fat ass of yours while we were freezing to death. How rude. I was plenty busy. Yeah, how about you put all that energy into something beside bitching? Let's go. So, one of the things we need to do, I was pretty sure we needed to combine it with the knife, but we might need to heat it up first. Guess I'll put this meat on the grill. Hey, what are you doing? What are you going to do if the paper burns? Come on, it'll be fine. I mean, it's not like it's going to burn right away, right? Just got to keep an eye on it, and the paper will be fine. Well, they can argue all they want. I'm going to keep an eye on this pork. Cool, looks like it's about time. I'm going to try taking the paper out. Jumpy, be careful. Sweet of her to care, but I know what I'm... Ouch! See? I told you. Hey, what the hell are you doing? Hurry up and take the paper out. It's not coming out. This thing's frozen stiff. I can't get it out. So are we gonna have to cut the meat? Yeah, it looks that way. Looks like we'll have to cut into that meat to get the piece of paper. Hey Junpei, I thought you had something you could cut meat with, didn't you? Alright, now that I've sharpened the knife. Yes, I cut the pork. Awesome, Junpei. Now we can cut out the paper. C plus 10 plus F. So, the whole thing. The whole big thing with that. With the plates. Is just to give you this hint. Yeah. We've only had one spot where we can do this, so. This is probably what you're supposed to use to enter the password. Maybe if we put in the right number, it'll open the oven door. Junpei, maybe the note you found earlier? Yeah, I know. You know how to enter those numbers? I think E is for enter and C is for clearing. So basically, when I'm ready to submit my answer, I press E. If I screw up, I just press C, right? Lotus nodded. Alright, let's give it a shot. Oh. So it looks like what it's asking for is for you to add 13 to 10 to 15 and then put it in. Huh, this is weird. Hey, you're just punching in random numbers, aren't you? Maybe if you just enter it like it said in the hint. Ah, shut up, just shut up. This is the display area above the buttons. Well, so if I want to enter my answer, I press E, and if I screw up and need to start over, I should press C, right? Let's try this again. Huh. Oh, I'm being a moron. It's 13 plus 15 plus 16, not 10. That would be 044. Unless I'm... Oh, no. I'm still being a moron. Because it's 12, not 13. Sounds like metal's falling. Well, I guess that went well. Yeah, the door opened. Good job, Jumpy. Oh, this is why you shouldn't math while tired. Yes. I think it's unlocked now. I mean, I'd hope so. The light's green. You did it, Jumpy. Let's get out of here. Yes, let's go. They stepped out of the kitchen and into a hallway that looked rather familiar. A metal grate stretched from wall to wall. Beyond it were two elevators and the entrance to the kitchen. They'd entered the kitchen from one door and had come out the other. That meant their map of the ship's interior was accurate. They laid the map out in front of them and began to discuss their next step. There were 4 possible routes. A, B, C, and D. First, A and B. A and B both seemed to connect to an L-shaped room. However, the 2 doors that led to the room were both locked and could not be opened. Next was Route C. This goes all the way to the main staircase. That means it's door 5, one of the numbered doors. Then do you think we would meet up with the other 4 after this hallway? No, I don't think we will. Why not? Look. There, by the stairs. See how the gate is opened? When we went into the kitchen, it was closed. But it's open now. What do you think that means? They opened it, most likely. Then if we take Route C, we're going backwards. That would be pointless. And that means all 4 looked at the map. They all looked at the staircase and its lazy curve leading down deeper into the ship. Route D it is, then. Yep, Route D. Then we're set. They jogged down the stairs until they reached the C deck. Just to be sure, they kept going to check the deck beneath. Yeah, just like I thought. Deck D is totally underwater, just like the bottom of the central staircase. The water gazed back at them, its smooth surface like a great mirror. As ominous as it was, Junpei took at least some comfort from the fact that the level hadn't gone up much since the last time he'd seen it. They turned back to C deck. It didn't take them long to find the 2 elevators in front of the stairs. They looked identical to the elevators on the top floor with one exception. These elevators had a card reader on the wall between them. On the card reader was a strange mark. Hey look, it's Lotus's symbol. Huh? See, it's the woman's symbol with a thorn on it. That seems like... And then Junpei was murdered. And no one cared. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Lotus had taken hold of Junpei's hair. She began to shake him violently, and he thought he heard a low growl coming from her throat. Such violence, Junpei began to wonder if she was not the devil itself. With an uncomfortable smile, June spoke up. This is a Mercury symbol. The thorn symbolizes the wings on Hermes' staff. Hermes, herpes, whatever. If we can't get this thing to work, these elevators aren't going to go anywhere. In other words, we need a key card with a Mercury symbol on it. Probably. They gave up on the elevator and returned to the stairs. Hallway stretched out to the left. Great many doors lined both sides of the hallway. They weren't sure how many, but certainly enough to be discouraging. Damn it, if we try and search all these, the sun's gonna go down before we've done half of them. I think the sun already set. I have a feeling the ship is the only thing that's going to be going down anytime soon. That's even worse. Well, we can come back to this hallway later. Let's check the hallway on the other side, shall we? Frustration and fear building, they walked back to the stairs. To their right was a small hallway. Quickly, they headed into it. It was approximately the same size as the alcove in front of the stairs. The hallway led towards the stern, and at its end was a set of double doors. Let's open it. Junpei nodded and grabbed the one closest to him. He gave it a small tug and felt it move. It was unlocked. Thrilled to have found an unlocked door, he threw it open. These animations always seem so lazy in comparison to what's being stated. Junpei didn't know what to make of what he saw. More doors. He simply stood, unable to speak. The others simply stared open-mouthed. After a few long moments, Santa managed to speak. What the hell is this? A massive room stretched out in front of them, more a cavern than a room. Its vastness was oppressive, and it bore down on the four companions. It was not empty, however. The entire room was filled with lines upon lines of beds. They were simple things, little more than pipes and thin mattresses. Is this a hospital? He had at last been able to put a name to the harsh scent that pervaded the room. The room smelled with the harsh, biting smell of antiseptic. In the center of the room were shelves stacked with medicine, and a number of medical devices, with the function of which Junpei did not know. More importantly, on the back wall of the room were 4 doors. 3 of them were emblazoned with large single-digit numbers made with thick red paint. The door on the left was labeled 3. The second door from the left had no number, but the third had been given a 7. And the rightmost door had an 8. There could be no doubt they were numbered doors. It did strike Junpei as strange, however, that the door between 3 and 7 should be blank. What, he wondered, could it mean? Let's take a look at the doors. Yes, that sounds like a good plan. Junpei headed towards the doors, weaving his way between the beds. He started with door 3 on the left and moved to the right until he reached door 8. It's no use. Well, of course. If it was that easy to open these doors, what would be the point of the nonary game? You have to activate the red. The numbered doors won't... Wait a minute. What's wrong? Look, the display on the red. There's nothing on it. Huh? Don't you remember? The red at the central staircase? If no one was inside, it said vacant. Oh yeah, you're right. This one... There's nothing on it, right? I wonder if it's broken. Only one way to find out. It didn't respond. All 4 took turns placing their hands over the red, but it refused to respond. They pulled at the lever, and still it did nothing. As they soon discovered, it wasn't only the red for door 8 that was behaving strangely. The red on door 7 also refused to respond, and door 3 was similarly silent. None of them would respond. What did it mean? I knew it. They're broken. 0 sure sucks at maintenance. No, that's impossible. You really think 0, who prepared all of this, would make such a stupid, simple mistake? Maybe, but that doesn't explain why this thing ain't working. It was at that moment they heard a voice from behind them. I believe the bottom of the device has been removed. They spun around to see... Everyone. Snake. It was more than just Snake. Ace, Clover, and 7 quickly filed into the room as well. Although they were glad to see one another, it wasn't terribly surprising that they had. If it had been the other party who'd opened the gate in front of the kitchen, it wasn't unreasonable that they'd bump into one another eventually. The rest of Snake's team, however, did look rather surprised. How? How did you end up here? After a moment of silence and surprise, everyone suddenly began to talk, desperate to exchange information. They talked about the rooms they'd been through and how they'd ended up in the same place. Of course, none of it was very useful information. That hardly mattered. They were happy to simply see one another again. Although the level of cheer varied greatly from person to person, each one of them was wearing some manner of smile, almost as though they had already forgotten about the death of the ninth man. Yeah, he was an ass. No, thought Junpei, perhaps that wasn't it. Perhaps thoughts of his death were what drove them to smile at one another. Not in a morbid or hateful way. No, the ninth man had died, but they were still alive, and that was something to be happy about. A sort of simple, uncomplicated joy, Junpei thought. The joy of being alive. Still alive. He felt sorry for the ninth man, but more than anything, Junpei was just happy to be alive. And when I'm saying these things out loud, I realize there are repeated words in like 3/4 the goddamn phrases. There you have it, our half of the story. His part finished, Ace fell silent. For a moment, Junpei was silent in thought. Then he spoke. Okay, let me see if I've got all this straight. When you guys got here, the bases for the red were already gone. And you looked all over this room, but you couldn't find anything. So you figured... But there might be something in the hallway with all the doors, so you went and had a look. Yeah. And while you were looking around, you heard voices. Uh-huh. So you followed the voices and came back here. Indeed. And that was how we found you. Junpei examined the 3 reds again, just in case. On the bottom of each was a long, thin gap. Looked like a slot for something probably electronic. Well, this isn't good. If the red's inactive, we can't keep going. Well, what about that hallway over there? Isn't there anything else we can do? No, there isn't. There are plenty more hospital rooms, but nothing else. Hospital rooms? That's what's behind all these doors? Yes. There are a number of individual rooms, in addition to this large one. There was a door at the end of the hallway, but it was locked. There was an astrological symbol engraved near the keyhole, however. I was able to get a good feel of it. I believe it was the symbol of Jupiter. Not again. Those goddamn things are everywhere. I wonder what they all mean. For a moment, everyone was silent, deep in thought. While we're asking what things mean, what's the deal with this room? I mean, I thought this was a cruise ship, but I can't imagine a cruise ship would have a hospital like this. Of all people, it was 7 who answered, and with calm confidence. Well, I figure it's probably a hospital ship. Chances are it's the Gigantic. The Gigantic? Junpei looked confused, so did everyone else. What is this Gigantic? 7 knit his eyebrows for a moment, then began to explain. The Gigantic... He explained that she had been a sister ship to the Titanic, built in the early 20th century. The Titanic had 2 sister ships who were identical to one another in nearly every aspect. The Gigantic was said to be one of them. She was initially intended to be a passenger liner, like the Titanic, but soon after the ship was launched, the First World War began. She was pressed into duty by the British Navy as a hospital ship. Sometime later, the Gigantic was damaged by a German mine in the Aegean Sea. She managed to run aground after the incident and consequently was not sunk. What then happened to the Gigantic after her fateful encounter in the Aegean Sea? One theory ran that a man named Lord Gourdane had purchased her. Lord Gourdane, it seemed, had been one of the few survivors of the Titanic tragedy, and that trauma had turned him into an obsessive collector of all things related to the Titanic. As his obsession deepened, he began to desire the Titanic itself. That, of course, was impossible. The Titanic laid at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. The Gigantic, however, had not suffered such a dire fate, and as she was identical to her sister ship, she caught Lord Gourdane's eye. So you're saying this Lord Gourdane bought the ship? Yeah, at least I think I am. That's impossible. No way we're in some boat that's almost 100 years old. Oh. At some point, I accidentally raised the volume, probably when I was cleaning stuff, of my mic. Pipe down, just pay attention. What, that's it? Well, have you got any proof? Proof? Proof that this ship is really the Gigantic? Well, this ship that's got stuff that's like the Titanic and a hospital ship, so I just figured... Oh, for goodness, don't tell me that's your only reasoning. No, I've got more. Like, well, I mean, Seven looked around desperately, doing anything to avoid meeting Lotus's piercing stare. I feel like this scene probably works a lot better if you hadn't just heard Lotus go off on random bullshit before. Also, I'll be right back. I need to get some more water. He scratched his head for a moment, then gave up. Finally, he opened his mouth. I don't know. Lotus sighed and shook her head. I guess your memory isn't back yet, is it? Yeah, sorry about that. Hey, wait a minute. Memory isn't back? Junpei was, he felt, legitimately shocked by what seemed to be new and very important information. Everyone else, however, seemed unimpressed. In fact, they all looked at Junpei as though he said something very strange. He decided to revise his attitude for the next question. Wait, was I the only one that didn't know? Everyone nodded. Why? Oh yeah, I guess I didn't tell you, huh? I told the rest of them before we ran into you on the stairs. I told them I couldn't remember a damn thing from before I woke up. What? Then, almost as if to save Junpei from further embarrassment. Something? Oh, a bell began to ring from far away. I don't actually have my headphones back on, so. It sounded as though it was the clock at the main stairway. Junpei counted each chime carefully. 10, 11, 12. Midnight. And we've still got 6 hours left, right? We don't have any time to screw around. Let's get going. We gotta find the missing parts of the Reds. What do you mean, find? How on earth do you propose we do that? We've looked everywhere in this room. That only leaves one place to look. One? I guess that's not really right. Wait. Don't tell me you mean we need to search all of the other rooms. Don't freak out. We already searched 4 of them. 4 rooms. We just have to split up the rest between the 8 of us. If each person does 6 rooms, that'll be 48 rooms, right? So there are 48 rooms left? Her earlier experiences had apparently not encouraged Lotus to trust Seven. Seven scratched his head awkwardly. I don't know. After a little more discussion, they split up and headed towards the room to begin searching them. Junpei was chosen to search the rooms on the starboard side, moving from fore to aft. They also determined when they would return to report their findings. The next time the clock sounded the time. When it did, they would meet back in the large central room full of beds. If during their search, any one of them were to locate the missing components, they were to yell for the others. If this strategy failed, they'd return to discuss their options later. The details decided, they left to begin searching. Out into the hallway they went, each into the rooms they'd been assigned. However, from far away, Junpei heard the bell ring. It did so only once. It was 1 a.m. Junpei was a lazy shit and did nothing for an hour. He jogged through the entrance of the large hospital, to find 6 of the others already there. Ace, Santa, Clover, June, Seven, and Lotus. They had gathered in front of door number 8, or perhaps, to be accurate, they had gathered in front of the red next to door number 8. Had one of them found the missing piece? What happened, guys? It was June who answered him. Jumpy, look. She was pointing at the red. He pushed through the others until he stood in front of it. Vacant. Immediately, he knew what she meant. Display on the front of the red. Read vacant. Junpei sighed. Come on, guys. Who was it? I thought we're supposed to yell if we found it. Well? Junpei wondered why she was hesitating. The others looked as confused as June, but kept their mouths shut. What the hell? What is up with you guys? They all knew something, he didn't, and Junpei wasn't about to leave things that way. Finally, Lotus frowned and spoke. Well, that's the thing. We don't know. You don't know? When I got back, it was already like this. There was no one else here. That means I was the first one back, but the missing pieces were already back in the red. Junpei looked at the bottom of the red again, just to be sure. The slot that had been open on the bottom was now covered with metal. Clearly whatever had been missing had been returned. What about the other two? They're the same. Junpei quickly examined the other two boxes. Satisfied that they were also repaired, but still very confused, he returned to the others. Alright, I just want to be sure here. Nobody has any idea what the hell happened, right? Ace and June nodded, silently. Seven raised his hand as if to say, not me, and Santa just shrugged. Only Clover lowered her head and did nothing. Huh? Wait a minute, that was when he noticed. Where's Snake? Junpei swept his eyes across the room a second time, but Snake was nowhere to be seen. Does that mean that he found them? I have no idea. There's nothing to suggest it, but nothing to suggest he didn't either. I don't suppose we'll know until we can ask him in person. Well, whatever he did or didn't do, he's pretty damn late. What the hell is he up to? Maybe he's lost. Yeah, well, that seems likely. Dude can't see. I don't know how he gets around in the first place. Clover raised her head. No, that's impossible. Suddenly she was shouting. Yeah, my brother's blind, but he's got really great hearing. He can get around as well as anyone who can see. So he couldn't get lost. That's impossible. Clover had started to shake, and the knuckles of her hands had gone white. She spun around, but before she did, Junpei noticed tears welling up in her eyes. I'm gonna go look for him. The words were barely out of her mouth when she began to run. Hey, hold on, Clover, wait. Junpei cried out to her, but he was too slow. She kept going, and before anyone else could react, she was gone. Damn it. What should we do now? Well, the red is working now. No, we're not leaving two people behind. We should go look for them. Aw man, this ain't good. Oh yes, what an excellent idea. We just wasted a bunch of time looking for some piece of electronic junk. Now let's waste some more by looking for a couple of idiots. Then remain here, if you feel you must, but there's no time. We've only 5 hours left. Junpei and the others nodded to one another and took off at a run. In front of the stairs that led to B deck, they decided to split up. They quickly assigned search areas and went their separate ways. Soon only 2 of them were left. Those 2 were Junpei and June, who had been a few steps behind the others. Which is, you know, a pretty good description of Junpei in the first place. Alright, we should go too. Yes, let's go. But where should we start? Let's see. I don't think any of this matters. So how about the casino on B deck? Okay, sounds good. They took up the stairs at a run. Before they knew it, they were there. So was Lotus. She was leaning against the wall, examining her nails. Hey, what do you think you're doing? He glanced up at him unimpressed. Isn't it obvious? I'm looking for Snake. I'm just not seeing it. Really? Maybe you need to look harder. Junpei didn't think that was the problem. Oh, by the way, I've got a proposal for you two. Care to hear it? Well, what is it? Well, I don't like to beat around the bush, so I'll get right to it. Why don't we team up? Team up? Yeah. What, you needed me to explain it to you? I'm saying, why don't we go through a numbered door? Even if we wanted to, that's impossible. Why? Jumpy's bracelet's 5, mine's 6, and yours is 8. Our digital route would be 1. But there's no number 1 door in the large hospital room. The only doors there are 3, 7, and 8. Then we add another person. Huh? Who? What? Isn't that easy? 7. She was right. If they added 7, 5 plus 8 plus 6 plus 7 is 26. 8. And the 4 of them could go through the number 8 door. But, whoa, hold on a sec. What about the other 4? Why don't you add them up? That was simple enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. 1, 0 is 1. Digital root for those 4 would be 1. That's right. And you know the number 1 door isn't in the big hospital room, right? Of course I know that. No, are you saying you'd leave them behind? Of course not. What kind of woman do you think I am? Once we get off the ship, we would come back and rescue them, wouldn't we? Then we wouldn't really be leaving behind. Don't try to lie to us. I don't think you'd do anything of the sort. Besides, we would have no way to open up the 9 door. Really? Why do you think that? You remember, don't you? We have less than 5 hours left, even if we manage to escape. There's no way we could come back to rescue them in less than 5 hours. Well, you never know until you try. No. You're not thinking this through. Even if we brought 7 with us, we wouldn't be able to get off the ship. 4 of us couldn't open door 9. It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9. Number 9? Yeah, that's right. The digital root for us 4 will be 8. So we'd have to add ace to make 9. Right. Unless we bring ace 2, we'll be stuck. Oh, well that's unfortunate. She didn't sound particularly bothered by what Junpei said, nor did she seem particularly surprised. Well, let's try and find another way, okay? A way to get out of here with all 8 of us. That's impossible. Are you being serious? You do know that only 5 people at most can go through one of the numbered doors, right? The number 9 isn't going to be an exception to that rule. Regardless, at least 3 people will get left behind. You're right, that is true. The moment he said it, Junpei felt a chill run down his spine. It was true. How Lotus could remain cavalier about so terrifying a prospect was beyond him. When they found the number 9, they would have to choose which 3 of them would die. Lotus's forehead furrowed. Do you think I could have a moment alone? There are some things I need to think about. Junpei and Jun turned and began walking away from Lotus. Talking to her had left them feeling ill. Junpei's heart felt heavy and his steps sluggish. But, he told himself, pessimism would get him nowhere. So he forced himself to smile and turned to Jun. Let's just focus on finding Snake for now, okay? Yes, you're right. We can think about those other things later. Junpei nodded. Alright, where should we go next? I think that we have to hit up all of them. Let's go take a look at the first class cabin, it's really close. They turned around and took off down the hallway to their left. Outside of the first class cabin, they found Clover. She was standing in front of the wall. She was staring at a meaningless point on the wall, her eyes blank. What should Junpei do? Talk to her, obviously. Are you alright? He did his best to sound friendly, but Clover didn't respond. Look, I know you're really worried, but, he could think of no worse to say that didn't sound hollow and fake. Junpei hesitated. Clover was so consumed by worry and fear that Junpei feared it would crush her. Her actions didn't surprise him. She had suddenly lost her brother, who she seemed to have been very close to. Lone. Her voice was thin and barely audible. Lone. Lone. I said leave me alone. Suddenly she was screaming. You're so annoying. Just go away and leave me alone. Just looking at you guys is pissing me off. Go away, okay? Just go somewhere else. Stop bothering me. Junpei was taken aback. Such anger and hate. Jun's eyes had gone wide with surprise as well. Why are you still here? Didn't you hear me? Fine, forget it. If you aren't gonna leave, then I'll just... Alright, let's go, Jun. Yeah. They turned and left Clover. As they did, Junpei glanced back over his shoulder to see Clover wiping tears from her face. Clover had driven home the misery of their situation, but Junpei told himself that getting depressed would get him nowhere but depressed. For Clover's sake, they had to find Snake, and fast. He did his best to push away the misery and depression and forced a smile. So where do you think we should go next? Hey, why don't we go back to C deck? We can take a look at that hallway with all the rooms. Okay, let's get going then. Together they ran down the stairs. Ahead of them, further down the hallway, they spotted Ace. Hey, Snake. Where are you? Answer me if you're there. Junpei paused. What did he want to do? Well, let's run over to Ace. With June in tow, Junpei jogged up to Ace. Hearing their footsteps, he turned to greet them. Ah, hello there. Snake is, well, that's obvious, isn't it? I assume you haven't found him yet either? Junpei nodded. I really wonder where he could have gone. Well, wherever he's disappeared to, we must find him as quickly as he can, for Clover's sake. Right. June's face looked kinda enraptured. By the way, do you think Clover and Snake are really siblings? Ah. Why would you say that? Why would you say that? The question seemed somehow odd to Junpei. Why? Well, it's obvious, isn't he? They don't look alike at all. Ace looked at him for a moment and then spoke. Yes, you know, now that you mention it, they don't. Now that you mention it? Still, there are a great many siblings who do not look like one another. It certainly isn't rare. Junpei wasn't sure why or even if he was seeing what he thought he was, but he could have sworn that Ace's face tightened as he spoke. At any rate, we really must find Snake as soon as possible. The clock is ticking. We really can't afford to waste any time. Very well, let's get back to the search, shall we? You can leave this area to me. Alright. Let's go, Jumpy. At June's urging, they left. They found themselves back at the stairs, but Junpei's mind was in turmoil. There was so much to think about, but no, it would have to be put aside for now. As Ace had said, finding Snake was their top priority. Junpei did his best to clear his mind. Alright, where should we go next? And the only spot we haven't been back to is the large hospital room. Why don't we go back to the big hospital room? Okay, let's go then. They turned and headed back towards the large hospital room. On their way to the large hospital room, Junpei and June noticed Santa standing next to the number 3 door. Junpei paused. What should Junpei do? Let's talk to him. Junpei and June walked up to Santa. What are you doing? What, you can't tell? I'm checking out the red. Why, is there something bothering you? What, it's not bothering you? Huh? This, the guts of the red. Why wouldn't you wonder who the hell put it back in here? Yeah, that's true. I'm curious too, but who do you think did it? Santa's eyes narrowed as he looked at June. She shook her head. I don't know. Well, what about you, Junpei? Who do you think fixed this thing for us? Someone other than... Well, actually, no. Zero seems like the logical choice. I think it was probably Zero. Why? Isn't that obvious? He's the guy who set this whole thing up. You don't think that should mean the opposite? It seems to me like that means he didn't do it. I mean, who do you think took that stuff out in the first place? Probably Zero. Yeah, exactly. Why the hell would he put them back in after he'd taken them out himself? Just doesn't make sense. Why do all that work? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. What happened then? Who put that stuff back in the reds? Junpei furrowed his brow. So in other words, one of us is the person who fixed the red. Santa grinned. Bingo. We have a winner. But if that's true, then then the person who did it doesn't want the rest of us to know they fixed the red. Yeah. But why? No idea. Maybe if they come clean on that, it means we'd find out something else. Something bad. Something bad? No. But whatever it is, it's gotta be worth hiding. Of course. It could have something to do with Snake's disappearance. You think maybe they did something to Snake? It's not out of the question. Junpei stared at Santa. There was something about him that made Junpei wary. At first he'd assumed the other man wasn't terribly clever, but Junpei was beginning to think he would need to reevaluate that assessment. When Santa spoke again, his voice was quiet. Look, if you trust anybody in this game, you're gonna lose. You gotta be careful. The person you trust the most could turn out to be the one who stabs you in the back. With that depressing suggestion, he turned and quietly walked away. Junpei and June looked at one another and smiled awkwardly. Come on, I think June would probably stab us at least in the front. Well, I believe that we have done as much as we can, which means we need to finish searching. They'd looked everywhere they could think of, but Snake was nowhere to be found. Lotus looked around at 6 frustrated faces and spoke. We can't keep looking for Snake. Wherever he is, it's not here. We need to get moving. Junpei couldn't disagree with what she was saying. Snake seemed to have completely disappeared. There was no point to wasting any more time. The others seemed to be having similar thoughts, but they stayed silent. Finally, Seven spoke. We don't got a choice. Lotus is right. We're not gonna find Snake. There's a problem, though. We've got to figure out who's gonna go through which door. Yes. I have a proposal. A modest proposal, if you will. She walked back and forth across the floor, her heels clicking against the wood. Finally, she stopped. Why don't we decide on one person to sacrifice? What the fuck, Lotus? Sacrifice? Well, perhaps that's a bit of a harsh word. But yes, you've all figured it out by now, haven't you? We can't all make it through those doors. If we split into 2 teams of 4 and 3 people, then 3 people will be left behind. If we split into 2 teams of 5 and 2 people, then 2 people will be left behind. If we split into 2 groups of 3 and leave 1 person out, then only 1 person will be left behind. Also, sorry for blowing across the mic as I get too close to it. Leaving behind 3 people with 2 teams of 4 and 3. Yeah, she was right. It wasn't pleasant, but she was right. There wasn't any way that the numbers worked out. If one group was 4, the other group would always have a digital route that didn't match a door. When Seven spoke, his voice was strained. Then you're saying we gotta decide who's gonna stay behind? Yes, we do. Given our circumstances, it's logically and morally the best solution. If the other 6 are to survive, then one person has to sacrifice themselves. No, that's too cruel. What's so cruel about it? To just sacrifice someone like that? And what's your plan? Maybe we should sacrifice 2 people instead of just 1. That's not what I meant. We shouldn't sacrifice anyone. I told you that's impossible. Wake up. Whoa, 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 calm down, you two. Santa stepped between Lotus and June. Look, what Lotus is trying to say is that you should aim to bring the greatest amount of people, of happiness to the greatest number of people. Right. Exactly. That's how democracy works, theoretically. Also, this is a lot like Marie Kondo's thing with books. If someone doesn't bring you happiness, you should leave them in this room to die. And for that reason, I think the only fair way to decide who will be sacrificed is through a vote. What do you think? Oh, that's terrible. I'm not asking you. Shut up. What about you, Santa? Me? Well, I agree, I guess. Alright, that's 1 vote for. Counting mine, that's 2. 7? I can't say I agree with you, but we don't exactly have a choice. If we don't do something, we're all going to die. Glad to see you get it. If I can get 1 more vote, then it's decided. What about you, Clover? Clover had moved away from the group and was sitting on one of the beds. Her whole body drooped. Junpei didn't know if she even heard Lotus's proposal. Lotus walked over to Clover and gently laid a hand on her shoulder. Your brother has to be behind one of the numbered doors. We searched everywhere, but we didn't find him. Doesn't that mean he has to have gone through one of them somehow? Clover slowly lifted her face. Let's go look for him together, okay? If we sacrifice one person, we can go look for him. What the fuck, Lotus? You agree with me, right? Clover nodded once. The motion carries. Lotus spun around and walked towards Junpei. Now, let's start a vote too. That won't be necessary. Ace had barely spoken for Lotus's entire speech, and everyone jumped a little. 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at him. He didn't seem to notice, or even care. I will stay. That should solve our problem, yes? Ace, what are you saying? No, you can't do that. That won't solve anything. June's voice shook, and she looked around desperately for someone to agree with her. Ace simply looked at her. June, I'm afraid you have misunderstood me. I said I would stay, but I never said I would sacrifice myself. I trust you, each and every one of you. I believe you'll come back for me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There's optimistic, and then there's just nuts. These doors only go one way. You go in, you don't come out. If we go through them, you won't be able to return, correct? Yeah, true. But that will not be the case once you've escaped from the ship. What? Please, I beg you, once you've escaped, come back and rescue me. Ideally within the time limit Zero has given us. No, that's ridiculous. There's no way we could get back in time. Finally, Junpei could hold his tongue no longer. We've only got 5 hours left. We don't even know where the hell we are. How on earth are we going to find someone to come and rescue you? Then perhaps you would prefer to stay instead of me? Or perhaps you would be willing to leave June behind? Ace's voice was dignified and without a hint of cruelty or malice. Junpei had no rebuttal. You see, there's no other choice. Then I see we've come to our conclusion. Go on. Don't worry yourselves about me. Go, quickly. Junpei stood frozen by indecision, unable to move. June bit her lips so hard that Junpei feared she would break skin. Santa stood against a wall, calm and aloof. Seven tore his beanie from his head and turned it over anxiously in his hands. I actually like the use of the word beanie here. Part of that being that it's not a universal term, obviously. I mean, the same bit of cloth would be a knitted cap or a toque. Toque? I don't fucking know. In various parts of North America, but... Only Clover stared at Ace, with an expression Junpei was unable to decipher. Lotus's attitude, however, was different from the others. Good. Let's accept his kind offer, then. She smiled, her eyes bright. Ace answered with a smile of his own. Good. I think this is best for me. Perhaps I'll be able to take a nap. Perhaps it's my age, but I get tired so easily these days. As he spoke, Ace lowered himself to the floor next to one of the beds. From somewhere deep in the ship, Junpei suddenly heard the screeching of metal on metal. It was almost as if the ship were screaming. Would it really hold until their time limit was up? Already D-deck was flooded. In sudden silence, the only sound was the sad metal wail of the ship. Unsurprisingly, it was Lotus who spoke first. Well, what are you waiting for? We're wasting time, why don't we hurry it up? As if a spell had been broken, the others all began to talk at once. You're right, we should get going. That's all we can do right now. 7. Seriously, honestly, I was getting kinda sick of listening to you guys talk. You too, Santa. I have to find my brother. Wait, all of you. Let's just calm down and think about this. There has to be a way to get everyone out. There has to be. Right, Jumpy? Say something. Yeah, there's gotta be another way. His words sounded hollow and fake. Fine, forget about it. I'll figure it out on my own. He spun around and ran toward Ace. He'd slumped down next to the bed when Junpei grabbed his arm and pulled. Come on, Ace, please stand up. You can't give up yet. I wonder if the spoken, or the words here are supposed to be kind of reminiscent of, like, Artax from Neverending Story. Or if that's coming to mind just because, well, I'm probably older than most people who would potentially be playing this. Just have to sit down together and think about this. We'll figure out a way that we can all get out of here. And it happened. Ace fell forward. He slumped over onto the wooden floor. His body folded in half like a boxer out cold. Ace! June cried out and dropped to her knees beside him. She put her arm around his neck and did her best to lift him up. What happened, Ace? Say something. She shook him frantically. His eyes fluttered open. I'm alright. His voice was weak and slightly slurred. How are you fine? He held out his left arm and slowly opened his hand. In it was a syringe and a small vial. The vial was empty. It had only been recently emptied. A few drops clung to the sides. There was a label taped to the side of the container. It read, Soparol Beta. Soparol Beta? Junpei had no idea what it meant, or what kind of medicine it might be. Did you use this? Yes. It's just anesthetic. I'll be fine. Anesthetic? I found it earlier, while we were searching the hospital rooms. I thought it might be useful later. I didn't think I'd be using it on myself. Why did you do this? Didn't I tell you? I'd like to take a nap. I really am very tired. Junpei knew that wasn't why he'd done it. Ace had injected himself with anesthetic to forestall Junpei's and June's attempts to bring him along. He couldn't move. There was nothing they could do. He'd injected himself so that they would be forced to leave him behind. Ace. Is there something you want to say? I'd just like to sleep a little. Could you keep it down? No. Don't, Ace. Don't fall asleep. Ah, you feel warm. So comfortable. I think I'll have a nice dream. Ace, that's pretty fucking creepy. Ace's eyelids dripped further and further, almost as though he were dying. Ace. Ace. She shook his shoulder again and again, but this time he didn't respond. Only the gentle rising and falling of his chest told them he was alive. Junpei was relieved to see he was, in fact, still breathing. He lifted Ace up off the floor and laid him on the bed he'd been leaning against. When Junpei turned around, Lotus gave him a look of pity. Well, we really don't have a choice now. We can't let his sacrifice go to waste, right? He wasn't feeling any remorse. Junpei was sure of that. Still, he held no grounds upon which to oppose her. It felt wrong, but he had to agree. And suddenly, Santa spoke. Yeah, but we're not done choosing yet, are we? Huh? What do you mean? Well, we haven't decided who's going in what door. Ah, yes. Yes, that's true. Well, enough of this screwing around. Let's decide. You first, Lotus. Which door do you want? I want door number 8. The same number as my bracelet number. Got it. You're 8. You're next, 7. Which one do you want? I'll take 7. I can't get along with that old lady. What? What did you just say? Her face distorted by rage, Lotus took a step towards 7, threw up his hands, and made a face like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Ugh. You're going to get it next time. She shot him a glare that would have melted steel, then turned and stalked off. Alright, who's next? Santa's gaze moved across the 3 people left. Finally, they stopped on Junpei. Junpei, which door do you want? At last. Junpei's mind was already made up. Well, one of the things you have to keep in mind is based off of the numbers. I believe it is June and Santa will be paired up and we will be paired up with Clover. Unless we pick door 3, but door 3 is just a shortcut to a bad ending. A specific bad ending, admittedly. But we could get that ending regardless. No, we need to do door 7 to get the bad ending we want. The cliffhanger. I think I'm going to go with door 7. Okay, 7 it is. Yeah. Alright then, that means June's gonna go through 8. What? Why? What? Santa grimaced and muttered angrily to himself, but finally began to explain. The 6 of us are gonna keep going without leaving anybody behind. There's only 3 ways we can do it. Plan A, Go through door 7 with 358, and go through door 8 with 467. Plan B, go through 7 with 457, and go through 8 with 368. Plan C, go through 7 with 367, and go through 8 with 458. And that's it. Those are our only options. In other words, 3 and 4, and 7 and 8 can never go through the same doors. You get it now. As Santa finished, June looked over at Junpei, tears welling up at the corners of her eyes. Oh no, you're saying we aren't going to see each other again for a long time? Junpei felt just as June did. He wanted to be at her side through whatever trials they were preparing to face, but he knew if they were to survive, he had to swallow his feelings. In order for the 6 of them to move forward, he and June had to be separated. He looked at June. He was scared to lose her, but he swallowed. He steeled his resolve and did his best to smile. Hey, come on, you're making it sound like we're never going to see each other again. We gotta split up, but only for a while. This is just like when we went into the 4 and 5 doors, remember? We got split up then, too, when we all met back up. I'll bet 7 and 8 are just like that. You mean they're connected somewhere? Yeah, probably. Probably? Didn't sound very hopeful. It was 7 that interjected. I'm sure they're gonna connect somewhere. Why? What makes you think so? If they don't connect, neither team can get through door 9. In other words, the game would end right here. Zero's been on top of his shit so far. I don't think he'd blow it now. I'm damn sure that son of a bitch wants to have his fun as long as possible. He's not gonna end this game until we get through the 9 door. Junpei said nothing. June said nothing, rather. The tears were gone, but her eyes were still sad as they looked at Junpei. He met them, and with what research he could manage, laid his hand gently on her shoulder. Everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna see each other again. I promise. June bit her lip and gave an almost imperceptible nod. Yes. Promise? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Santa's voice shattered the moment. You guys are done, right? He stretched and continued. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Clover and I will both go into separate groups. I figure I'll take 8 and Clover can take 7. Any problems with that, Clover? Clover looked away and was silent for a moment. Whatever. More of a dismissal than an agreement, but Santa didn't seem to care. Alright, we're ready to go then. Let's move. At Santa's command, the group split and headed for their respective doors. Clover, 7, and Junpei walked towards door 7. Santa, Lotus, and June headed for door 8. For a long moment, they stood in front of the door. 7 took a deep breath. You guys ready? Yeah. Yes. Okay, let's go. I don't know why the little cutscenes there glitch out. The door had opened. A narrow hallway stretched out before them. 7 and Clover leapt through the door. The moment they did, their bracelets beeped. The detonators in the bracelets had been activated. Junpei stepped forward to follow them. But as he was about to step over the threshold, he stopped. He looked to his right towards door 8. June stood there, a mirror image of Junpei, and they let all 4 of the other people explode. She turned and looked toward him. Their eyes met. They nodded. Their farewell took almost a second and a half. Then someone took hold of Junpei's arms and hauled it bodily through the door. He heard the sound of the numbered door slam shut behind him. His bracelet gave a cold electronic beep. Only 81 seconds left. Actually, is that even correct? Do they actually have 90 seconds from that initial time before they start to explode? Or is it that the 81 can... it doesn't really fucking matter. Let's get moving. And I say it doesn't matter because it's not like this is an actual game element, it's a VN element. 7 led the way down the hallway. Junpei and Clover followed him as fast as they could. After what seemed like far more than 81 seconds, they reached the end of the hall. To the left of a wooden door they found was the dead. There was no time to rest or catch their breath. All 3 slammed their hands in quick succession over the scanner panel on the dead. Still trying to catch his breath, Seven leaned heavily against the wall. It stopped. It stopped. His smile seemed forced and a little crooked. This is the second time we've gone through one of these numbered doors, but you never really get used to it. He stood up straight, no longer out of breath, and wiped some of the sweat from his head and neck. Clover smirked at him. I would have thought a guy your size would have bigger balls than that. What? What the hell did you just say? Say it again. I dare you. You have no... You want to die? I'd like to see you try. You fucking brat. Alright, let's go. Hey, calm down, guys. This isn't the time for this. Not gonna do us any good. Ugh. Gosh. Junpei sighed. Sometimes he wondered if the doors and the puzzles were really the greatest challenge they faced. Wait here for a minute, alright? I'm gonna go see if there's any other doors. They didn't respond, but Junpei wasn't in the mood for conversation anyway. First, he examined the inner part of the numbered door. It was, of course, shut tight. On the left was a single short hallway that terminated almost immediately at a thick iron wall. Junpei doubted the wall could be moved. At last, he gave up and returned to Seven, who was tapping lightly on the wooden door. This door's the only option we got, right? Yeah, looks like it. There was a metal plaque bolted above the door. It read, Operating Room. If it was to be believed, on the other side of the door, was an operating room. I feel like I'm going to be bitching about the repeated phrases constantly. Like, I know it's a VN staple and all, but it seems like this one goes above and beyond. Something about it made Junpei feel nervous. Well, there's no point standing around. Might as well go in and see what's waiting for us. Seven grabbed the brass knob and slowly opened the door. The creak of the hinge sounded like the groan of an old woman. A chill snaked its way down Junpei's spine. Quickly he gathered what courage he could and took the first step into the room. Seven followed, with Clover right behind him. Part of the room just past the door was obscured by a screen. Clover's curiosity got the better of her, and she darted past Junpei to peer around the screen. Yuck. Her scream nearly blew out Junpei's eardrums. He and Seven ran toward Clover to see what had frightened her. They rounded the screen, and the cause of her outburst was immediately clear. What the hell is this? Is this a corpse? It's a fucking mannequin. It was something that looked kind of like a human, laying across some sort of bed. No, not a bed, an operating table. The table sat on a rusty steel lift, and a cluster of bright operating lights shone down on it from the ceiling. Slowly they approached. As they got closer to the body, it became clear that it wasn't a body at all. What the hell? That's just a huge doll or something. A doll? Clover did not look terribly comforted. Slowly she approached the operating table and looked as intently as possible, from as far as possible, at the thing. Junpei could see her relax. You're right, it's only a doll. Man, it really scared me. She heaved a great sigh of relief and wiped a few drops of sweat from her forehead. Reminder, due to our actions, she had to walk past the corpse of the ninth man. Yep. Seven smirked. Well, I guess it would have been weird if you actually had any balls. Shut it. Don't you start with me, fatty. Oh, what's this? You want a piece of me, short stuff? Yeah, bring it on, you whale. Hey, guys, not again, okay? Seriously, knock it off. Junpei sighed and shook his head. Anyway, looks like he's got something the two of you could stand to have a little more of. I'm talking about a heart. Huh? Oh, this? You mean on his chest? Yeah. It was set a little higher than normal for a human body, but from the shape of the organ, there could be no doubt that it was a heart. Why would there be a heart in a doll? Because it's a fucking puzzle. I don't think it's a doll. You think maybe it's like a medical mannequin or something? Maybe it's got more personal uses. Seven's grin was more than a little perverted. Clover glared at him. I'm also glaring at him. Thank you, Clover. Anyhow, how about we take a look around this place? Let's go. Okay. Sure thing. Although, I'd like to note that if I do play the sequel, I'll be hating on Clover's outfit every fucking step of the way. Every step of the way. So, let's check out the little plaque first. Hey, I wonder what this thing is. It says kg on the display. You think maybe it's a scale? Huh? There's some sort of lid on this thing. Why don't you try opening it? Can't. There's no handle. Can't get under it with my nails either. These dolls are really kind of creepy, you know? Hey, it says something here. John. You think that's this doll's name? Maybe. This thing's creepy. Wonder why it's on the bed. A white cloth. Well, let's get the thing that stands out pretty well, the forceps. The only other thing that kind of stands out is the bulb syringe in the bottom right, but that's not clickable. Maybe the bowl? Nope. That last one wasn't actually intentional. Let's move the cloth. That is far more creepy when it only has part of the doll. Another medical mannequin? From the looks of it, this one's a chick. She has a name too. Lucy. Poor thing. Looks like Miss Lucy only has a head and a left arm. Maybe we're supposed to gather all her parts. There's some kind of device attached to the bed. It says kg on the panel. Is this a scale? What's this thing? It's got these short iron legs. Maybe it's a heater, or a boiler, or a furnace, or much of anything. Looks like it's probably a heater. There's nothing in it. It's a fake chest. Maybe you're supposed to heat something like that gauze to kill the bacteria. There's a boiling thingy over there. There's nothing on the lid or in the drawers. There's a lot of different kinds of medication. It's hard to tell them apart. Whole bunch of bottles on this shelf. They all look like medicine. They've got labels. They're all big medical words that I don't understand. Things like aspirin. It looks like that. It's tough to see in the thing, but it looks kind of like it says PlayStation Room. We can probably find the key if we just look some more. Let's look somewhere else. A medical mannequin with its guts showing. Ew, gross. Hey, Junpei. There's a slit in this thing's chest. Yeah, sure is. There's something in there. Maybe we can get it out. Ugh, damn it. Stinking thing won't budge. It's stuck. Well, I guess you can't use force on this one either. We need something small that can fit into that little hole, like force EPS. Fake organ. Just the medical mannequin. One of the organs is missing. The organ is organ? Really, Clover? I expected more from you. Oh, like you could do better. And again, the thing that stands out, the scalpel. I wondered, is the scalpel relevant? Oh, okay, no. This bed doesn't look very comfortable. Lucy's head and left arm are sitting on the bed. Maybe something will happen if we gather all of her body. Oh, I guess we need to gather everything. A creepy medical mannequin is lying on the bed. Apparently his name is John. Oh. Looks like it's locked. Guess we're gonna need a key for that. Junpei, where are you going? That's the door we came through. The only thing out there is a numbered door. I'm pretty sure I don't need to tell you that the numbered door is a one-way deal. So, you're saying there's no point in going back there? And they're nodding. Awesome. Oh, hey, it makes a little, that is a really annoying flash there on the actual screen. Neat. Thing for boiling tools to sterilize them. There's nothing in the drawer. The drawer is empty. Yeah, nothing there. There's a pipe going outside. Okay. I definitely feel like I'm missing something. There's a lot of tools. Wait. Yeah, table with a scalpel and forceps. They're all rusty though. Don't think it'll be real useful. So we took the organ thing out of the chest thingy. It's a lung, not an organ thingy. Huh, this part here on the back, it's all rubbery. Right. So it's a fake organ, of course it'd be, but wait, what's 7 grabbing it for? Hey, it feels like there's something in here. You think we can cut through the rubber part? That's what I was thinking. An organ key. So this leads to... This is good for one of the doors. We don't know which one yet. Awesome, it's unlocked. Hey Junpei, you think there are any slugs on this ship? Huh? Well, there are. I was thinking you could put salt on them. What's she pointing at? Label states NaCl. Salt, huh? You think 7 will shrivel up if we put it on him? Hey, you say something? There's a note on top of the table. Iron is 1, salt is 2, water is 3. Carbon dioxide is unknown, ammonia is unknown, ethanol is unknown. What do you think this is a hint for? Maybe it's got something to do with this box? We got a blue liquid, a red liquid, and I seem to recall this puzzle being a huge pain in the ass. Rectangular table. I wonder, did people mix medicine on this thing? Huh? Something stinks. Is it coming from this bottle? It says NH3. Well, that, of course, stinks. It's ammonia. Oh, good stuff. Let's go for a drink. What are you talking about? I'm talking about that bottle. It says C2H5O4. OH, not 4. It's ethanol. That's right, it's also known as ethyl alcohol. Pretty much what booze is made of. So you're gonna drink it? Nah, I won't. It might say that's what it is on the label, but there could be anything in there. What's this? Looks like a can with a spray nozzle. It says CO2. So it's a can filled with carbon dioxide. It's a canister of carbon dioxide on the shelf. Label says CO2. Hey Junpei. Not even dignifying that with reading it. Junpei, there's a bottle of iron powder on the shelf. How do you know it's iron? Label says Fe. Fe. Looks like there's something inside that bottle. Why don't you try pouring some out into the cat? Can't see any reason why not. What's that? It's bright blue. You think it's alien blood? Where the hell did that come from? And what do you think it is, 7? I don't know, some sort of special bath soap? What a boring guess. Looks like there's something inside that bottle. Why don't you try pouring some out in the cap? Can't see any reason why not. What's that? It's bright red. Do you think it's blood? No, blood's thicker than that. And what is it? Beats me. Box is locked. Looks like you have to enter a passcode on the keypad to open it. You can only enter 3 numbers. E is for enter and C is for clear. Once you input the number, press E. If you mess up, press C. And I seem to recall what the whole damn thing is. So, okay. I will explain it. Fe, ferric, iron, 1. Iron is 1. It has 1 element. Salt, NaCl. I don't remember what Na is off the top of my head. So Na and Cl combine. Water, 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. What's carbon dioxide? Also 3. What's ammonia? I don't remember. What's ethanol? I also don't remember. So, D2, H5OH. Oh. It is... I'm drawing a blank as to why the... H would be separated like that. I guess it's there are multiple C2H6Os. But regardless that, it would be 9. So, 4. So, 3, 4, 9. I was thinking this one was difficult, but... Might be one of those things where I actually do sort of remember it. We got a fake heart that doesn't look anything like a real heart. It's got a slot on the back. Thing is super creepy. This ain't good for the heart. We got an arm. So we can combine this with the body. Why the fuck can't we combine you? Yeah, there's nothing else in there. You think we should go back? Yeah, I think that's probably best. Clover nodded and left. Junpei was about to follow her when he realized that Seven wasn't following suit. Hey Seven, what's up? Oh, well. He looked up at Junpei distractedly and then back down at the brown bottle he held cupped in his large hands. What's that? In response, Seven tossed the bottle gently to Junpei. He caught it and twisted around to read the label. Ethyl anodiamine tartrate? EDT. It's tartaric, whatever the hell. What kind of medicine is that? It's not medicine. I think it's an industrial strength detergent. Why would they have something like that here? Well, probably to clean stuff up. Clean what up? Fucked if I know. Still. Looks like it's cleaned my brain up. Junpei looked up from the bottle. You remember something? Seven nodded slowly and spoke. Well, I remember a story about EDT. Happened about 50 years ago. There was this factory somewhere in America, making big ol' EDT crystals. They were making it to sell as industrial strength cleaner, like I told you before. But, year after the factory started up, something strange started happening with the crystals they were building. Water molecules started attaching themselves to the EDT crystals. This made them into a sort of mutation crystal called a hydrate. Once the crystal turns into a hydrate, though, it's useless as a cleaner. The factory had to just dump the crystals. As a hydrate, they were useless. But it didn't end there. After that day, the same thing started happening in EDT factories everywhere, even ones nowhere near that first American factory. They'd been making the crystals the same way, with the same materials and the same equipment and environment, but now all of a sudden every single crystal they formed turns into a hydrate. In fact, ever since that day, no factory anywhere has been able to make a pure EDT crystal. Even in EDT research done years before, they'd never gotten a hydrate, but after it happened at the first factory, it just spread. It was like, man, how do you say it? Like the molecules were communicating with one another, transmitting information in a way humans couldn't perceive. This phenomenon spread throughout the world, right? Junpei looked up at Seven with half a smirk. Seven stared at him, dumbfounded. Yeah, that's it exactly, but how did you know? I heard another story kind of like that one. When? In the freezer. What? The freezer? Junpei told the story he'd heard from June in the freezer in the kitchen. Now one day, glycerin began to crystallize, in the story of ice that wouldn't melt at room temperature. When Junpei was done, Seven looked thoughtful and absent-mindedly rubbed the scar on his chin. Ice that doesn't melt at room temperature, huh? That sound familiar? Yeah, hold up. I feel like I can remember something. It's right there. Seven squinted. His eyes stared off into space as if he were trying desperately to focus on something far away. Do you... And this is another one of the dumb fucking choices. You have to provide a hint about what it is he's trying to think about by giving him the name. You know about Ice 9. Kurt Vonnegut's Ice 9. Ice, ice, ice. Ice baby. Suddenly, Seven's eyes shot open. That's it. I remember now. That woman. She's on this boat. That woman? Alice. Who's Alice? Come on, the woman who won't melt at room temperature. It became clear to Seven that Junpei had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. He ran his hand across his face and took a deep breath. You know how the Titanic sank on April 15th, 1912, right? Yeah. More than 1,500 people died. Worst maritime accident in history. What about it? Did you hear about the boat that was sent to collect the dead bodies? I think that was the RMS Carpathia, right? It was a cruise liner, just like the Titanic. No. That was the ship that picked up the survivors. The ship that collected the dead bodies was the CS Mackay Bennett. The Mackay Bennett... Mackay Bennett? I'm gonna go with Mackay Bennett because there's that bit of rhyming there. Showed up on April 17th, 2 days after the accident. It set out from Halifax, a port in Canada, and recovered 306 bodies. Hey, 20%. The Atlantic that far north was really cold. It would have to be for there to be icebergs and stuff. Anyway, the bodies they pulled out of the water were frozen solid. This isn't a very nice story. So what happened next? Well, they say the Mackay Bennett recovered something more than just dead bodies. There were various bits of stuff floating around in the water, things the drowned had carried with them, or stuff dislodged as the ship sank. One of the things they found was a coffin. A coffin? Yeah, a wooden one. The craftsman who'd made it must have been pretty skilled. It wasn't just a wooden coffin, it was all wood. There were no nails or reinforcements, and there were no gaps in the wood anywhere. It was airtight. So like a Japanese traditional carpentry style coffin. Except the Japanese don't do coffins. The crew got pretty curious about what might be inside and opened it up. They had to get a wedge and hammer it open. It was so well made. The curse of the Mackay Bennett. Inside, they found a woman, or I guess you should say they found the dead body of a woman. Her hair was thick and black, and her skin was deep brown and didn't show any signs of age or decomposition. They say that she looked gorgeous, like a goddess. She was obviously dead, but everyone who looked at her said she just looked like she was sleeping. Her skin was so lifelike, she looked like she might wake up at any minute. She didn't, though. Like the rest of the bodies they found, she was frozen solid. Eventually, the Mackay Bennett finished this search and returned to Halifax. The 306 bodies were unloaded and taken ashore. However, it was warm enough they began to melt. They say that the stink was horrible. But there was one body that didn't thaw. The girl in the coffin. That's right. Everybody thought for sure that she'd melt and start to rot like the rest of them eventually. But weeks passed and nothing happened. Then a month had passed and another, and it was summer and she was still frozen solid. After a while, people started to say she was some sort of miracle. Rumors about the girl started to spread, and people came to visit Halifax from all over. After a while, people started to call her All Ice. Alice. Of course, those rumors didn't last long. Why? Well, she up and disappeared. One day Alice was there, the next day she wasn't. They say someone snuck into where they were keeping her and stole the body. With the body gone, the rumors followed pretty quickly. After a while, no one remembered her. You might be able to find something about her if you could find a newspaper from back then, but that's about it. Wait, you just say that she was on this boat? Yeah, I did. Alice has got to be somewhere on this ship. Now, why the hell would you say something like that? Because I know. And just what is it you know? What happened to Alice after she was stolen? Junpei gulped. Alright, tell me. What happened to Alice? Seven nodded, slowly, and took on the look of a man recalling something long buried. Well, around that time, the word was that there was a thriving black market in New York. And I'm sure there still is, but this was special, all millionaires from all over the world. I've heard that Alice went up for auction there. The person who won the auction was Lord Dashiell Gordain. You've heard that name before, right? Sir Gordain. Isn't he the guy who bought the Gigantic, the Titanic's sister ship? Yeah, that's him, although I guess he hasn't done that yet. What do you mean? Gordain bought Alice in 1912, then 4 years later in 1916 he bought the Gigantic, and he hid Alice somewhere on the Gigantic, but nobody knows where. He died in 1931, and apparently he died without ever telling anyone where Alice was hidden. However what? Well, he did have one close friend, who asked him, "Where is Alice?" And he said, "Alice sleeps in a small chamber past the forest of knowledge beneath the navel of the Gigantic." What the hell is that? Some kind of riddle? Your guess is as good as mine. Seven threw his hands up in defeat. So that's it. Whatever you think, I believe it. She's hidden somewhere on the Gigantic. In other words, she's hidden somewhere on this ship. Before Junpei could dispute Seven's rather bizarre claim, they heard Clover's voice from the door. She did not sound pleased. Hey, what are you two doing over there? Stop wasting time and get over here. Okay, we're coming. Seven looked at Junpei. Yeah, so anyway, that's the story. Might be useful someday. Don't forget it. With that cryptic remark, he turned and left the room. Junpei was left behind to ponder what he'd just heard. He tried to remember what June had told him earlier. That mummy wasn't just a normal mummy. They say that she was frozen. The story says that from the time of its discovery, all the way to when it got put on the Titanic, and even though it was carried through the desert, her body never melted. Was that Egyptian priestess Alice? Had the water in her body become Ice 9? No, that's nuts. There's no way somebody like that could exist. Junpei shook his head, trying desperately to clear it, and followed Seven to the operating room where Clover was waiting. Oh, it says preparation room. I still think it says PlayStation room. Oh, I guess that organ key might open both, since we still have it. Cool, it's unlocked. Reveal your secrets, Hooks. I think you can't hang your coat here. There's a bunch of hooks. Let's see if... a piece of paper. What's this? Is this some kind of medical record? New material has been added to the file screen. There's nothing left in the drawer. Cabinet with a drawer in it. What the hell are you doing? Don't you want to get out of here? But I'm tired. The white light on top is glowing. Yeah, but the red, blue, and purple ones still aren't lit. There's a ray of light going through the beaker. And it's hitting the thing on the right. And we need to use the colored liquids to do something. But we don't know what yet. It's locked. It won't even budge. You think this is the exit? Oh, what's the symbol? Symbol engraved there. This is a Jupiter symbol. Hey, wasn't this Jupiter symbol engraved by the keyhole on the other door? Other door? The door at the end of the hallway with all these rooms. I think maybe this is this door and that door use the same key? Maybe. Won't open. Looks like it's locked. There's a red plate on it. Do you think that means something? The doctors and nurses probably wash their hands before an operation. Nothing suspicious here. So, we need to use Hey, it turned red, and we heard an unlocking noise. And that gives us a mannequin doll. Wait a minute. Oops. It's blue now. I think I heard another noise. Indeed you did. Oh, the red one's still unlocked, so... Could have just done them all at the same time. I get it. You combine the red liquid and the blue liquid to make a purple one. Good job, Junpei. Purple light came on and I heard it unlock. I'm sure it's unlocked. The locker with the purple plate has got to be unlocked. Alright, let's see what happened. So I don't think we can actually do anything with these. I think we actually just need to go over. Okay, so we've collected the 6 parts of the medical mannequin. The ones we've got must be for Lucy, right? Yeah, seems like it. Well, I say we give Lucy her parts back. Any objections? No? Agreed. Alright, let's get started. Combine. Hey, nothing happened. That's odd. Maybe it's the wrong weight? Wait. Yeah, well, you know how there's a scale on the side of the bed? Maybe we need to get the scale to a specific number. How are we going to do that? I think we're supposed to swap her body parts with John's. Oh, let's give it a shot. Operating instructions. Screen below displays 2 medical mannequins. Switch their body parts by touching the part you want to switch out, and then the part you want to switch in. Okay. Well, I'll be right back. I did too many calf raises this morning, and my legs are not happy with sitting for long periods of time. Yeah. I don't actually know what weight we're going for. I assume it's just get the heavier parts onto John's side, but I mean, it could be just swap everything. Whatever. Came from John's operating table. We better check it out. An operating table. Do you think old operating tables looked like this? I have no idea. Hey Junpei, look at the scale. Okay. Huh? The lid on the scale. Hey, it opened. Oh, I get it. It must have opened because we matched John's weight to what's on the chart. I must have missed the chart. I'd love to say I'm surprised, but... Oops. Now, it probably actually had set it here. And I just never thought to, actually look at it. hold on. Junpei stopped, about to put the key into the doorknob. What's up? Where's Clover? Huh? Junpei turned around. Clover was nowhere to be seen. God damn it, where the hell did she go? Okay, just hold on a minute. I'll go get her. Sure thing. Junpei left Seven at the door and headed back to the operating room. He found her, standing next to the operating table. She was staring at the mannequin. Hey Clover, what's wrong? Come on, let's get out of here. She didn't respond. If she hadn't been standing up and breathing, Junpei might have thought she was dead. What are you doing? Did you want to come back here and say goodbye to John? It wasn't the best joke, but it was something, an attempt to lighten the mood. Clover didn't laugh. She stood, stock still, and said nothing. Hey Clover, can you hear me? Perhaps it was something that he'd said, or perhaps it was something else. Suddenly her mouth opened, and she whispered in a dry, dead voice. My brother might be dead. Huh? That's why we couldn't find him. If he's dead, I'm going to be next. Suddenly the operating room felt very, very cold. What are you talking about? What's wrong with you? He gave her a small shake, but she still didn't respond. Silence grew heavier. Junpei. What do you want to do? Let's just get out of here. We've got the key. Let's use it. That cool with you? Clover nodded, almost imperceptibly. Still, Junpei was glad to see she was at least somewhat responsive. He put his hand on her shoulder and guided her to the preparation room. As they arrived at the door, she suddenly stopped. I'm sorry. What was this? Why was she apologizing? Junpei wasn't sure what to make of her. Was she emotionally unstable because her brother had gone missing? I'm really sorry. Just forget everything I told you, okay? Don't worry about it. Really, I mean it. How could anyone pretend not to hear something like that? But something told him this wasn't the time to press the issue. Junpei gave her the warmest, kindest smile he could manage. Alright, thank you. Her smile was weak. It was almost painful to watch. Damn. What the hell took you guys so long? Empathy 7. Seven looked up as they walked into the room, clearly irritated. You playing doctor in there or something? Maybe. Jealous? Junpei, she looks like she's 13. If that. Seven avoided answering the question. They stood in front of the door. Junpei took out the Jupiter key. Alright, I'm going to open it now. Is that cool? You don't need to keep asking. Just do it, alright? Yeah, fine then. Slid the key into the keyhole and turned it. He felt it unlock. The door opened with a soft, melancholy creak. Or a really poorly done audio file of one anyway. Beyond it lay a simple white hallway. There was no fanfare or confetti. Obviously, there was no one there to applaud them. They simply walked through the door. That was it. Alright, let's get going. Hey man, what's up with you? You're so serious, you know? Can't you sound more happy? You know, get a little excited? Not really. Junpei turned away from Seven and took his first step down the simple, white hallway. My brother might be dead. I'm going to be next. Clover had told him that only a few minutes before, that her brother was probably dead and she was likely to follow him. How could he pretend to be happy after hearing something like that? I'm glad that they used that following the low moments there. They left the operating room. The hallway took them around several corners and past several doors, but they were all locked. Until at last, the final door was hidden in a corner of the hall. Junpei grabbed the handle. As he made to push it open, a voice stopped him. The voice came from behind him and belonged to neither Seven nor Clover. Jumpy. He spun around. He saw someone running toward him from the other end of the hallway. There were 3 people coming toward Junpei and his companions. Santa, Lotus, and June. They pulled up short in front of Junpei, breathing hard. Whoa, what the hell is this? That is me hitting the wrong button, is what that is. What are you doing here? What? But we didn't... Before he could finish, Clover spoke. Hey guys, could you come take a look at this? She was standing near the end of a small hallway that branched off to the right. The rest of them ran over to her, curious as to what she'd found. There was something on the wall at the end of the hallway. A map of the ship's interior. It said SeaDeck in the upper left corner. It was, they assumed, a map to the floor they were on. Door 7 and door 8, the map confirmed what they already knew. Both doors eventually led to the hallway where they had found themselves. In fact... Yeah, isn't that what I said? We aren't going to be split up permanently until we find door 9. We might get separated for a little while, but we'll see each other again. Otherwise, we won't be able to open door 9. That's how the nonary game works. Junpei looked at the map of the ship's interior again. As he looked more closely, his surprise and excitement gave way to weariness. One by one, the others saw what he'd seen. They moved as one for the door. He pulled the map of the ship's interior off of the wall, put it in his pocket, and followed the others. The 6 of them stood in front of the door, arrayed in a semicircle. Santa stepped forward. He took hold of the door and spoke without looking back at the other 5. Ready? I'm going to open it. Slowly, all 5 nodded their silent assent. With a deep breath, Santa threw open the door. They poured through the doorway and into the room. Even without looking around, each one of them knew where they were. They were just where the map had said they would be, the same room they had been in not so very long ago. The tremendous central hospital room, with empty beds from wall to wall. I see. I believe I understand what you're saying. The 6 of you split into 2 teams and went through doors 7 and 8. You solved the puzzles in the operating room and the laboratory, and then met one another in the hallway after opening your respective locked doors. He looked like anyone might, after only just waking up, but it seemed that his brain was working as well as ever. He'd managed to grasp, summarize, and understand each team's report. At any rate, I feel a bit silly for my little show of altruism. I'm sure you'll be back for me. I did hope you would come back, but I confess I didn't think you'd be back so soon. He shook his head with a rueful smile. Well, we saw each other again, and we ain't dead, so I say that's good enough. Evan smiled. Anyway, I say we get out of this creepy old place. We found the key we need. The key? Ain't that what I just said? I'm talking about the Jupiter key. We found it in the operating room. Right, Junpei? Junpei nodded. Ah, the solar system keys. Actually, we found one in the laboratory, too. Here, the Earth key. Lotus dug out a still warm key with an Earth symbol on it. I might lose it. It's probably better if you hold on to it. That way it won't be my fault if it gets lost. And with that, she pressed it into Junpei's hand. He felt slightly less than honored. As a group, they now had 3 keys that had not been used. The Jupiter key, which had been found in the operating room. The Saturn key card, which had been found in the kitchen. And the Earth key, which Lotus had just handed to Junpei. Junpei tucked the new keys into his pocket. Jun spoke up. The Jupiter key is supposed to be for the door at the end of the long, straight hallway, right? Yeah. If the map's right, then it connects to the central staircase. Then, next to the stairs... Wait, they were the first words anyone had heard out of Clover in quite some time. Her face suggested they weren't going to be very happy words. What about door 3? Look, you saw the map, right? It's the same as 7 and 8. It just leads us back to the big hospital room. There's no point seeing what's on the other side of that door. There is a point. At least there is for me. There were tears in her eyes, but she glared at 7 as hard as she could, just the same. She looked very much like a frightened puppy. There wasn't a man alive who could have resisted those eyes. 7 looked everywhere in the room except at Clover, and muttered and coughed apologies under his breath. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Snake might be on the other side of door 3. Clover nodded once. The next person to speak was Ace. Very well. I'll be coming with you then. I've had a nice long rest. I think it's time I was up and about again. So 7, you'll help me, won't you? Huh? Me? Junpei did the calculations quickly, in his head. Looked like 7 was doing them too. Last, he gave up. Damn, well I guess that's how it's gonna be. So I'm going with you, huh? Yes, you are. Alright, let's get moving. So it was decided that Clover, Ace, and 7 would discover what lay beyond door 3. Okay, we're heading out. Be careful. Whoa, didn't think I'd be hearing that from you, Lotus. Don't let it go to your head. I'd be in trouble if the 3 of you bought it. The rest of us can't open the 9 door. Ah, the truth comes out. 7 nodded as if this answer made much more sense, and pulled the lever on the red. Okay, let's go. The door opened, and Ace, Clover, and 7 jumped through it. 6, 7, 8. After exactly 9 seconds, the door closed noisily. Alright, we should get moving too. Huh? Get moving? Where are we going? Everyone except Lotus seemed rather confused. Well, it'd be a waste of time to just sit around, wouldn't it? Let me explain. I get it. We're gonna see if we can get anywhere interesting with the Jupiter key. Yes. If we're lucky, we might find Snake. They were at the end of the hallway, lined by individual hospital rooms. The Jupiter symbol was engraved on the keyhole. Alright, Junpei, open it if you please. Yeah, on it. Junpei pulled the Jupiter key out of his pocket and slid it into the keyhole. He twisted. With a nice sharp click, he felt the door unlock. Alright, ready guys? Junpei's companions nodded. He nodded back, then slowly and quietly opened the door. Inside was exactly what he expected to see from the map of the ship's interior. They were in a tremendous hall, almost like a ballroom, with a massive central staircase. Great, back to the beginning. You sure this is a good idea? What do you mean? Well, we already searched every inch of this room, didn't we? I'm asking you if there's any reason we came back here. Of course there's a reason. Man, sometimes I can't tell if you're smart or just lucky. Huh? This. Junpei pulled 2 things out of his pockets. Saturn key card and the Earth key. Santa cocked his head to one side, like an inquisitive bird, and looked at them. After several long moments during which it became apparent that Santa had no idea what the cards meant, June took pity on him. Don't you remember, Santa? On C deck, where we are now, there was a big elevator behind the stairs, remember? Next to an elevator, there was a card reader with a Saturn symbol on it. And on A deck, on the door to the left, there was a keyhole with the Earth symbol on it, I think. So the 2 keys that Jumpy has should let us use the elevator and the door on A deck. Huh. Yes, that's right. June smiled, pleased with herself. So did Santa. Alright, I got it. Let's get started then. What do you say we split into 2 teams? Lotus and I will search the Earth one, so you two can search Saturn, alright? Sounds good. Junpei handed the Earth key to Santa. They decided that their initial search should be brief, only 10 minutes. They'd meet back near the staircase once they were done. Junpei and June headed for the elevators. Sure enough, there was a card reader bolted to the wall next to the left elevator. He lined up the Saturn key card and swiped it through the reader. A light on the upper left corner blinked to life. Great, looks like it's working now. Alright now, how do I call the elevator? There was a single button to the right of the elevator door. On the button was the upside down triangle, the universal symbol for down. There didn't appear to be an up button. Junpei pushed it. He didn't have much of a choice. The most reassuring looking elevator. It opened. Look, Jumpy. June's voice was excited, but Junpei could hear a tinge of anxiety. Sweet, it opened. Let's get going. He grinned at June and stepped toward the open door. As he was about to step foot in it, he felt a hand on his arm. Wait. What? I'm not really, oh gosh. Junpei was at something of a loss. What could she possibly be so frightened of? June was probably afraid of them only being able to go down. She was afraid because the only elevator button pointed down. That meant, of course, that the elevator couldn't go any higher than the floor they were on. As he thought about it, Junpei realized he hadn't seen elevators on the A or B decks near the central staircase, all of which meant that the elevator could only convey them to the lower decks. The floor below the one they were on, D deck, should be completely submerged. That meant... Hey, wait a minute. This elevator came up from somewhere under us, right? Well, yes, I guess it did. It didn't open right away after you pressed the button. There was a motor noise, like it was moving, and then it opened. Yeah, exactly. Yes, so take a look inside. Junpei jerked his head toward the interior of the elevator. It's not wet at all, is it? The walls and even the floor are totally dry. Oh, you're right, they are. She looked around the elevator, slightly embarrassed. Well, let's test it. Test it? Yeah, what's this? Junpei put one foot in the elevator and bent around the corner of the door until he could see the floor buttons. There were only two, E and C. He pushed the E button and jumped out of the elevator. The door slid shut and they heard the grinding of the motor as the elevator car moved down. A few moments later, they heard the sound of the elevator door grinding open several floors below. Junpei nodded to June and pressed the elevator button again. A few moments later, the elevator returned. The door slid open, and just as Junpei had expected, there was no water to be found. See? Junpei couldn't resist puffing out his chest, just a little bit. June, however, still looked confused. What does that mean? How can the E-deck be safe if the D-deck is full of water? Well, here's what I think. The elevator shaft and E-deck must be watertight and separated from wherever the ship's been punctured. Here, let me show you. He pulled out his notebook and pen and sketched out a rough illustration. A very rough illustration. I see. So is that why the ship hasn't sunk? The shape of the inside keeps it all from all filling with water? Yeah, I think that's what's going on. Junpei continued talking as he closed his notebook and slipped it back into his pocket. So I'm gonna go down and check it out. You stay here, alright? But come on, just do it, alright? He gave June's shoulder a reassuring squeeze, then hopped onto the elevator. He pushed the E button, and the door began to close. June looked worried, her eyes darting back and forth as if she was trying to make a decision when suddenly... I'm coming with you. Huh? The last possible moment, June dashed forward, turning sideways just in time to slip through the gap between the closing doors. Junpei jammed his finger against the open button, but it was too late. The door had shut, he and June were in the elevator, and it was headed down to the E-deck. He was so surprised by June that he didn't even have time to think about what awaited him on the E-deck. The elevator stopped, and the door slid open. They stepped off onto the floor outside the elevator. Nothing seemed especially unusual. No fish going about their fishy business, or jellyfish floating lazily through the water. There was, however, a blowfish, or at least something that looked very much like one. June's cheeks were puffed out, and her mouth a tiny, intense frown. Oh, knock it off. Just like I thought, this part hasn't flooded. Come on, just look around. There's no water here. June looked around nervously, then exhaled. You're right. It's not flooded at all. See? But there's a whole lot of water. Yeah, right on top of us. What's going to happen if the ceiling breaks? Junpei thought about that for a moment. We'd probably die. Oh no, don't be so casual about something like that. At any rate, we should probably go back as soon as we can once we're done looking around down here. Lotus and Santa might already be back. Okay, good idea. Junpei glanced around the room they found themselves in. First thing he noticed was a set of thick iron bars. They ran the length of the room, separating the left elevator from the right elevator. Well, we can't go over there. Right. Then perhaps... In the corner of the room that housed the elevators, Junpei found an opening. He walked up to it and stuck his head around the corner. A long, straight hallway stretched out in front of him. That door at the end of the hallway, there's something written on it. Yeah, let's go have a look. It says 6. Junpei and June set off down the hallway at a brisk clip, somewhere between a run and a jog. Before long, they found themselves in front of the door. On it was a number written in bright red paint. 6. I knew it. This is a numbered door. And indeed, there was a red bolted to the wall right next to the door. And this one's important for getting the true ending. Of course, we can't get it on this playthrough, but it is important eventually. Of course, with only 2 people, there wasn't much they could do with it. Alright, let's head back. Yes. Junpei and June turned and headed back to C-Deck. On their way back, Junpei noticed a map on the wall. As it turned out, it was a burnt map of the ship's interior for E-Deck. Huh. So you guys found door 1. They'd met back up with Santa and Lotus, who'd explained what they found. Apparently there was another numbered door on A-Deck, just like the one on E-Deck, beyond the door that the Earth key opened. According to Santa and Lotus, there was a 1 on the door. All told, they had discovered 2 new doors, the 6 door and the 1 door. It's interesting that E-Deck wasn't flooded. Lotus was quiet for a moment, lost in thought. We don't really know if all of E-Deck is saved. We only checked the area around the elevator. Even so, it's still very interesting. You said the 6 door was there, right? Yes. And that means Zero planned all this out, even the sinking. That would have meant some pretty serious remodeling of the ship's interior. Pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Yeah. Wonder how long it took. I can't even imagine how much it must have cost. It would have been a ton, that's for sure. Well, that does go along with what Ace was saying. The most reasonable explanation would be that this was done by some organization with access to a whole lot of cash. Yes, that does make sense. That thought made them all go quiet for a moment. June bit her lip while Lotus sighed softly to herself and Santa cracked a stiff neck and stared off into the distance at nothing. I don't think it's a very good idea to stay here. June looked up at Junpei with large, pleading eyes. Yeah, you're right. Ace and his team might be back already. Well, Junpei and I should be able to open door 1. Huh? You guys leaving me behind? Just kidding. Alright, let's go. Lotus's words were all the impetus they needed. Back to the large hospital room they went. The moment they stepped inside, a tremendous voice echoed across the room. Hey, where the hell did you guys go? It was 7. Ace was right behind him, and Clover was behind Ace, although she seemed to be hanging back. It looked as though there was something strange about them. 7 had the look of a man who'd seen a ghost. Ace was just as pale, and Clover looked as though she was only moments from passing out entirely. For a long moment they simply stood there, looking at one another. Junpei looked around nervously, waiting for someone else to speak. No one did. He looked at 7. What happened? What the hell kind of question is that? 7 was trying very hard to be angry, but something had shaken him, hard. His shoulders were trembling and his voice was strained. Snake is... 7 couldn't finish. He just looked away, his face twisted by Junpei wasn't sure what. Instead, Ace spoke. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spoke. Snake is dead. He died just as the 9th man did. It was as if all the air had suddenly been sucked out of the room. Ace felt his heartbeat quicken, and he realized he was having trouble breathing. He could feel cold sweat beating on his forehead and neck. June, Santa, and Lotus looked the way he felt. All 3 were frozen in place, their faces white. Oh my god, that's not true, is it? We should make sure. Yeah, right, we should. They nodded to one another and headed for the number 3 door. Wait, not that way. They stopped short and turned to look at 7. He was pointing at the door with no number. I stuck a screwdriver in there to keep the door from closing all the way. It's not locked, so you can go in that way. Where is he? The shower room, on the left side of the hallway. I put a broom in there too, to keep the door open. We can get in without going through the numbered door, right? Yeah, that's right. Their new destination clear. Junpei and his companions headed for the door with no number. Once in the hallway, it was easy to spot the metal door on the left wall. Hadn't been open when they'd been through before. But now, just as Seven had said, there was a broom stuck between the door and the frame, keeping it open. They looked at it for a moment, and stepped inside. It smells horrible. Lotus wrinkled her nose and covered her mouth in disgust. Even Santa pinched his nose shut. Yeah, this is pretty awful. I feel like I'm gonna puke. It was just as bad as I said, perhaps worse. A hideous smell filled the air, so thick they could almost taste it. It was sour and smelled of fish, feces, and burnt meat. It worked its way through Junpei's nose and down his throat, found against the entrance to his stomach. He put his hands over his mouth and struggled to keep what little was in his stomach where it belonged. They didn't have to wonder where the body was. There was blood everywhere. A few arms of the splatter reaching toward them as they walked in through the door. I do have to wonder about why it looks like it was done with a spray paint tool and MS Paint. Also what the LR means, but I mean spray paint tool. All one had to do was follow the many radial arms to their source. The body itself was hidden behind a divider. June, you should stay here. But, please, just do me a favor, okay? Alright? He didn't give her a chance to say no. He put his hand on her shoulder, as if to shove her into the ground like a tent pole, turned, and walked towards the end of the divider. It felt like it took an eternity for him to get there. Santa and Lotus followed, timid and nervous as a pair of children. Eventually they reached the divider. They looked at one another and nodded, slowly. Junpei put his hand on the divider and peered around the corner. For a moment he forgot to breathe. He felt his heart collapse in his chest like an empty cigarette carton, and time froze. He knew in that instance he would take the image before him to the grave. Also, the blood in this looks really, really bad, like you would kind of expect for a DS game. What was left of the body sat in a sea of blood. Chunks of flesh torn from the body sat in the blood like tiny islands in a great red sea. A vast, ragged hole had been torn in the torso. What remained of his intestines spilled out of it like fresh spaghetti. Smaller chunks of meat had splattered against the wall and become stuck there as they dried. Globules of yellowish fat had left trails like tiny slugs as gravity pulled them down the wall, even as they dried to it. Just like Ace said. Santa's voice was strained. Junpei suspected he was holding down some vomit of his own, just like the ninth man. The detonator in his bracelet set off the bomb in his gut. It looked as though the explosion had been quite powerful. His legs were both bent in an odd, unnatural way, and his left arm had split open, exposing the painfully white bone of his ulna. His bracelet lay next to him. It seemed to have hit the wall hard enough to have shattered the display, which lay on the ground in pieces. Half of his head had simply collapsed. The blood coating almost made it look like raw pizza dough covered in tomato sauce. His clothes, too, were covered in blood. The burgundy tie, the white shirt, the jacket with the yellow piping, and the gray slacks. They were all familiar to Junpei. No mistake about that, it's Snake. Lotus's voice was unnaturally deep and strained, and Junpei heard it catch in her throat. The squeal of tortured metal made Junpei's teeth curl. It sounded like noise a ghost would make. No matter how many times he heard it, he never got used to it. Every time, it put him on edge. It didn't help that there was a girl nearby who looked far more like a ghost than a living human should. It was Clover. She sat on the edge of the bed, her head drooping listlessly onto her chest. Her eyes were blank and stared across the room at nothing. Her breath was slow and mechanical. Aside from the rise and fall of her chest, she didn't move. Junpei felt as if even a nudge might cause her to shatter into 1,000 pieces. Snake was probably murdered. Chances are, he was killed the same way the ninth man was. Seven lowered his voice, likely in an effort to keep Clover from hearing what he had to say. There were 4 other people in the room with Junpei and Seven. Ace, Santa, June, and Lotus. 7 looked at each one of them in turn and continued. It's pretty straightforward, not that hard to figure out how they did it. First, the killers got Snake to authenticate on the red to open door 3. Then they shoved him into it, alone, and waited 9 seconds for the door to shut. Once that door shut, it was over for Snake, but he didn't give up. He probably knew it wouldn't do him any good, but he probably ran into the shower room looking for the dead. It was a small chance, but it wasn't like he had anything to lose. Unfortunately, it didn't work. The detonator's only deactivated if everybody who authenticated when they went in uses the dead. And then 81 seconds after he was shoved in. That happened. I see. That's what you meant by killers, huh? You need at least 3 people to open one of the numbered doors, including Snake. It wouldn't open for Snake and a single killer. Exactly. That means we're looking at multiple perps here. Junpei crossed his arms and grunted. Well, just in case, I want to make sure. Let's say you're right. When do you think Snake was killed? When we all split up to look for the parts for the Reds, I think. Right after that was when we noticed he was gone. And that means none of us have alibis. We were all off searching the rooms we'd been assigned, looking for those parts. Yeah. That means anybody could be a killer. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? June seemed shocked. How can you say one of us is a killer so casually? Well, not just one of us. If I'm right, then at least 2 of us are murderers. Why don't you calm down a bit, 7? What are you going to gain by being so suspicious? That's what 0 wants, you know? What 0 wants? Exactly. Game was set up by 0, wasn't it? Any game has a winner and a loser. Whoever makes it through door 9 is a winner, and those who don't are the losers. 0 is trying to make us fight against one another for that victory. Then you're saying that 0 is trying to split us up by making us fight each other? Yes. That's why we can't let ourselves fall prey to suspicion. We have to trust one another and form a strong bond of friendship. Otherwise, we'll end up ensnared by 0's manipulations. Then does that mean the person who killed Snake, yes, almost certainly 0 himself? If there's anyone we should doubt, it should be 0. He masterminded this game and kidnapped all of us. Doesn't it seem reasonable that he would have killed Snake as well? I mean, it depends. Depends upon how honest it is about being a game. I mean, indirectly, he would have killed Snake regardless, but... Junpei hadn't really considered that. If 0 had killed Snake, then 0 was on the ship with him. Was 0 still on the ship with him? Junpei wasn't sure. Yeah, I'm just wondering about one thing. And what's that? How can you be so sure that 0's on this ship? Ace's eyebrows shot up. Really, Junpei? I confess, I'm a little disappointed. Usually you're rather sharp. Isn't it obvious? Obvious. How so? This ship. Huh? 0 said this ship several times when he addressed us. I am 0, the captain of this ship. The purpose of the game is simple. Leave this ship alive. As you have no doubt surmised, this ship has begun to sink. If he weren't here, he wouldn't say this ship, would he? He'd be saying something like that ship or the ship. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Ace's explanation made perfect sense. Junpei felt a little foolish he hadn't seen it himself. Still, he was left with a question, and it was one of no small importance. If 0's on the ship, where is he? Suddenly, everyone went very quiet. Silence was cold and clammy, and Junpei could feel it crawling across the back and around his throat. Again, he heard the ghosting, moaning noise. Moments later, a person who looked more ghost than human appeared. It was Clover. She looked at the floor as she spoke, and her voice was a cold monotone. I think 0 is one of us. Like, that's really that big of a revelation. Every human body in the room froze. The only sound was the muffled rustling of breath. Eyes darted from face to face. One of those faces was the face of their jailer. But who? Junpei said, well, that's possible. Huh? Like Clover said, 0 might be one of us. What are you saying, Jumpy? Didn't you hear what Ace said? Exactly. I said we shouldn't suspect one another for no reason. No reason? I've got a great reason. And what's that? The bracelets. He held out his left arm. Why are the bombs in our bodies connected to the bracelets? You're all thinking Zero's hiding somewhere watching us, right? If he's doing that, then he could just detonate the bombs by remote control if someone did something they weren't supposed to. It would be a lot more precise and a lot easier. But, if that's the case, then why is the bomb set off by the detonator in the bracelet? Well, you got a point. I'm not done. Try applying the same ideas to the nonary game. All the puzzles here run all by themselves. In other words, Zero doesn't have to be controlling them for the game to move forward. Why is that? Why would Zero bother to do something like that? Junpei let the question hang in the air and looked at the others. It was Santa who answered. Let's say you and Clover are right, Zero's one of us. If that's the case, it'd be really hard for him to keep track of all of us or control anything remotely. That's why all the puzzles run by themselves. That's what you're getting at, right? Yeah. Junpei nodded. 7, when we were talking earlier, you said any one of us could be Snake's killer, right? Yeah, something like that. Alright then, I've got a question for you, Ace. You said something like Zero must be the one who killed Snake, right? Yes, something like that. I can't think of any other explanation. But what do we get if we combine those? They fit together pretty well, I think. Something like this. Whoever killed Snake is Zero and is one of us. 7 and Ace's theories aren't mutually exclusive, they actually complement each other pretty well. At least they do if Zero is one of us. No one spoke. Their faces were grim, but Junpei wasn't sure if they believed him or not. Finally, Lotus spoke up. What were his motives? His motives? Yes. Isn't that pretty important? Why would Zero want to hide as one of us? Oh, well, that's because, Junpei choked. He hadn't thought of that, and he had to be honest with himself. He had no idea. I don't know. Lotus sighed. Well, so much for making a persuasive argument, Junpei. In other words, you had only circumstantial evidence. I don't really think that's enough to go on, you know? Junpei was painfully aware of their eyes on him, and their disapproval. He tried to find something else, anything else to look at. Just when he felt he could bear it no longer. They heard a bell begin to ring. It was the clock at the central staircase. 3 in the morning. That means we have 3 hours left. And we need to move, now. 7, Clover, Junpei, I know how you feel. But you do understand that right now it's important we trust one another, don't you? Junpei couldn't bring himself to respond. He swallowed the words he wanted to say and sighed. 7 and Clover remained similarly silent. Their eyes were looking at something else very far away. We must go. We have very little time left. Ace's words put their feet to moving. They all knew where they were going. Their next destination was Mercury. It sat bolted to the walls near the stairs that led to the casino and the kitchen between 2 elevators. The Mercury card reader. Junpei stood in front of it with the Mercury key card. 7 had given him the card. I found it when we were checking out the shower room. At least, that's what he'd said. Junpei slid the card through the reader. The light on the reader turned green and made a tiny electronic noise. Now they were ready. Junpei and June had been chosen as the investigators. The reasoning being that they had been to Edek before, and no one else had. As before, Junpei sent the elevator ahead to make sure the floor they were heading to wasn't flooded. As before, the elevator returned as dry as when it had left. Once it had been checked for water, Junpei and June stepped into the elevator. There were only 2 floor buttons they could push, the C and bottom buttons. The rest were destroyed, or did nothing else when pushed. Junpei hit the bottom button. The door closed. Slowly, they began to move downward. Sometime later, Junpei and June stepped off the elevator and onto the bottom deck. They stepped off and saw that the hallway to their right ended somewhere between 20 and 25 feet from them. The hallway in front of them was a dead end, but not a regular dead end, a numbered door dead end. So there are doors 1, 2, and 6. This is the 8th one we've found. There were 2 numbered doors on B deck near the central staircase. They were doors 4 and 5. There were 3 more numbered doors in the large hospital room, doors 3, 7, and 8. Junpei and June had found another door on E deck, and Lotus and Santa had found a 7th on A deck. There was a 6th on the door on E deck, and a 1 on the door on A deck. 1 through 8. And now door 2 stood in front of Junpei. There was only one thing it meant. You think the next door will be fine? Yeah, I think so. The next one's going to be door 9. Despite himself, Junpei felt excited. There was something about that excitement that frightened him as well. He did his best to put it from his mind and headed back to C deck with June. Alright, let's open these up. The pieces of paper they'd folded up lay on the ground next to Junpei's legs. There were 7 of them all told. They were written on paper pulled from Junpei's notebook, and each one bore a code name and a door. Why had they decided to vote that way? They decided it wouldn't be fair to simply ask everyone at once. That would allow people to force others to go through certain doors. Well, that wasn't the only reason. Junpei had proposed the voting system, and he had a plan. It wasn't a plan he wanted anyone catching wind of, however, so he did his best to act calm as he began to open and read the pieces of paper. The first one read, Ace requests door 1. Yes, I do. Would you like me to explain why? No, we don't have the time for that. Sorry. Let's keep going. He opened the second one. Sorry, had a bit of cough there. Next is Santa. He wants door 6. 2 is of course Snake, and Snake's dead. Yeah, that's what I wrote. Junpei continued with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th pieces of paper. Clover wants 1, Lotus wants 2, 7 also wants 2. Eh? Wait a minute. No way I'm going anywhere with the Elephant Man. No, there'd be no point to the voting if we let people change their choices because of stuff like that. But just give it up, Lotus. Not like I want to hang out with some exhibitionist grandma. I'm not an exhibitionist. I'm wearing clothes. Barely. So? Last I checked, that's not a crime. Maybe, but what about common decency? Nobody wants to look at a chick who looks like a half-naked raisin. I'm going to kill you. Lotus's hair flared out like the mane of an angry lion, and she roared with a voice that shook the walls. With some difficulty, Ace managed to restrain her. Junpei. Read the rest. Right. Junpei tore his eyes away and looked down at the 6th piece of paper. He opened it. June wants door 6. Yes, I don't really have a reason, I just felt like it. All of the papers, save Junpei's, had been read. He did some quick calculations in his head. People who requested door 1 were Ace and Clover. This was the door on A deck near the central staircase. People who requested door 2 were 7 and Lotus. This was the door on the bottom deck and could be reached by taking the elevator to the bottom of the ship. People who had requested door 6 were Santa and June. This was the door on E deck and could be reached by taking the elevator near the central staircase down. It took him less than a second to run the numbers. He opened the 7th piece of paper and spoke. Also, I'm going to drop a save here. Okay, the last one is mine. I want to go through... Well, this is actually where I intend to leave off. So, I wasn't sure if we could actually do the save point on the point here. But this is the next major point. So, I will also drop a save state just to make sure. And I will be back with more of this next Friday. Because I'm mean. I did accidentally hit the button while doing that, but can't be seen anyway.